freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome one and all, you're watching What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Ladies and gentlemen, government is slavery. Thanks so much for tuning in to the new live streaming video format right here on whatonearthishappening.com. We're also simulcasting on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Vimeo Live. Welcome to the new format. We have a really great show planned for you here today. Today is January 20th, 2019. This is episode number 197. It's really, really great to be back. I've been out of the live broadcasting business for about 3 whole years it's been actually. And this show was conceived about 3 years ago, just as I went off the air in the original podcast format, the original internet radio format. And since that time, well, I've been working very hard to make a new format happen with a lot better production values, a live internet streaming video show. So many people really came together and helped out and donated and came forward to dedicate their time and skill to this endeavor. I want to first and foremost thank everyone who has made this show possible. From the time of conceiving it all the way to the point of bringing it into actual manifestation. Really, it did take that whole 3 years. And I want to thank the production crew, my producers. I want to thank the setup crew for all of their help. I want to thank everyone who donated to make this new format possible. And I want to, before we get into the material for today's show, I want to let everybody know how the new video format is set up. So as you can see, we have a beautiful new interface, kind of a dual window pane interface, where I'll be sitting down in that bottom left-hand corner. And then in the upper right-hand side, I'm going to be able to present anything that I want to show to the listening audience in there. So like we can show you my actual laptop, and I could present slides in there to do actual live presentations. We can put videos in there and let you see videos in real time or play audio. So this is going to be a great teaching tool. It's going to be a great environment for being able to convey ideas to the listening audience, to the watching audience. So this interface I kind of came up with back about 3 years ago, and at the time I didn't have a production staff to help me with actually broadcasting it, and having to sit there and produce while you're actually delivering content looks very awkward. So that's why it took a while to reach out and find people who were willing to come and help. And boy, the people who showed up, I mean, they are absolutely invaluable, and I want to just thank them from the bottom of my heart for making this possible once again. So Basically, I want to go over a couple of quick introductory items. I want to let everybody know that I'll be speaking at ABKCO 2019 again this year. I spoke there last year in 2018. It went really great. I had a presentation on the main stage, and I had a workshop there that went very successfully. If we can switch over to the laptop view, this is, of course, the whatonearthishappening.com website. And what's great about this video format is I could show you things live in real time, whereas before I had to kind of just describe them and then, let people go up there and figure it out for themselves. But now I could show you exactly what I'm talking about on the website. So right here, there's a banner about me being a speaker at ABKCO 2019. So I'm going to click on that. Actually, I already did. I have it up in another tab. And this is the ABKCO website. You can check out all about the conference there. And there's a speaker page. Here's my speaker bio that's up there with many, many other speakers. I mean, so many great speakers going to be at this event this year. This is my page right here. You can click that, the little info guy there, and you can read my bio. And also there is a page about my workshop here. It's called Demystifying the Occult Revisited, Initiation into the Mysteries. This is actually going to be taking place right before the main ABKCO conference on February 13th. So if you click into the website, the ABKCO website through this banner, you can get tickets right there. It'll take you right to the tickets page, and tickets for my workshop are available right on the via the Get Tickets button at the top right-hand side right here on the workshop page. So hopefully I'll see a lot of people out at ABKCO this year. Great event, great conference. Looking forward to meeting with the other speakers and with people who turn out as attendees. I will be leaving for that on the 7th of February. So just want to very briefly let everybody know that we'll be doing 3 shows live to start this new video format off, and then I'll be heading down to Mexico. So I'm going to gauge whether to do shows while I'm down there through my laptop if I have an adequate internet connection. But basically the first 3 shows are going to be, this one and the 2 over the next 2 weeks. Then I'll be leaving. So there may not be shows for those, for weeks 4 and 5. And then I'll be doing shows after I come back from ABKCO, obviously. But again, I'll be assessing whether I could do shows live from down in ABKCO, maybe even bringing on a couple of the speakers to interview while I'm down there. If that works out, you'll be seeing live shows from Acapulco, Mexico over those couple of weeks. If it doesn't work out and I'm unable to do it, we'll just not air shows for that week. Just to let everybody know what the topics are going to be over these first 3 shows back. The first show today is going to be called Where is Humanity at in Consciousness? And, I have a lot of slides planned for this. We'll be giving a whole presentation today on the air. And it's going to be just basically where I see the overall dynamic of human consciousness in the year 2019, in early 2019. So that's coming up on today's episode. Next week's episode, I'm going to be getting into what prompted my hiatus from live broadcasting and what I've been doing in the interim, in the 3-year interim since I've been broadcasting live on the internet. So it's going to be, next week's show is going to focus largely on me and the issues that went on during the hiatus and the projects that I did while I wasn't broadcasting live on the internet airwaves. And I think people will find that pretty interesting. A lot of people have been asking me a lot about that. So we'll be going into that in detail next week. I wanted to put a show together that kind of tried to put my finger on the pulse of where we're at this week. So I think people will find that valuable. The next week, so the 3rd show back, is going to be all about the Earache drive. The Earache drive is called the Amazing Repository of Knowledge. I'm going to briefly go to my website and show you the Earache page on the website. So I'm going to click this tab right here that says Earache, okay? And you could read all about what the Earache drive is. It's basically a 1 terabyte USB bus powered hard drive, okay, that I fill up with data from all of my research over the years. And that is a free offer. I ask basically for a donation for my time and effort. But if you want to take me up on the offer for the ARC drive, you just fill this form out and you can get the request the shipping instructions that way. Pretty stringent shipping instructions for very valid reasons, which I'll get into on the show that I do that is all going to be about the ARC. The third show back is going to be about why this is so important, how this fills in a lot of the gaps and fills in a lot of the blanks and puts a lot of the puzzle pieces together for people, and can help them to come to a level of completeness in their understanding, because there's a lot of gaps in people's understanding. There's a lot of gaps in their knowledge base about what is really taking place in our world, and that's why they're not going all the way. That's why they're not getting the true, full, holistic picture. And that's what I think the ARC drive can help to do in a very, very significant way. At least the people who have taken me up on the offer have said it has really helped them, plug basic holes in their worldview picture and help them to understand much more fully what is really taking place around us. So that's going to be the third show back. And then we'll be getting into deeper material. We'll be going into much deeper into issues related with the occult and related with mind control and with human consciousness and how to really change it for the better. That's what this show has always been about, as we'll be seeing as we go deeper into today's show. So I think that covers the basis for basically what I wanted to get into regarding any kind of announcements and preparation. So I think we're set to just jump into the material for today's broadcast, okay? So I'm going to start the presentation slides. We can cut back to the laptop. And of course, this is the new live streaming video format for What on Earth is Happening. Again, people have to be aware that this is most certainly a continuation of the former podcast series, okay? So today is going to sort of be like a reintroduction to the show and what I do here. And it's going to be more about like where I see humanity at and headed, okay? And what we have to really do and do within ourselves to really create much more positive and lasting change if we want to see that happen in the world, because we have a long way to go and a lot of work to do on our personal spiritual journey and on our journey to end slavery on this planet and create a society based in voluntary interaction and true human freedom. So one of the things I also don't want to forget is that we are going to take calls on this subject matter and really anything else that the viewing audience wants to discuss. You can actually go to whatonearthishappening.com/show if you're not already there and click on the call-in link at the bottom of that page. And basically that call-in link will take you into a Discord call-in room, a chat room. Basically, Discord is like Skype on steroids. That's how I kind of describe it. It's a chat application that was originally introduced for gamers to chat back and forth while they're playing video games, but it kind of evolved into a lot more than that, where you can set up live chat servers and voice rooms. So that's basically what I did. I set up a call-in room, and basically you can read the instructions when you get into that room, and basically that's how you're going to call in. What this is different, how this is different from how I used to take calls in the past, is it doesn't require any calling through a phone. So no international calling required if you're calling from another country. You don't have to rack up tolls to call into the show. This is all done just through, voice over the internet. So really efficient way of doing it. I think people will find it really that it works very well when they try it out. I highly recommend to use the actual Discord app. You can get that from discordapp.com. So that being said, we're going to jump into the topic, which is, what is the state of humanity? Where are we at in human consciousness? Okay. So, we're talking about the overall masses of people in the aggregate now. Okay. We're not talking just about individuals. We're talking about how the individuals come together to form what you might call a mass mind. Where is the mass consciousness of humanity at? Okay. Now, 3 years have passed since I've really commented on this in a big way, at least in a live format. I've done many interviews in that downtime. I've done some presentations in that downtime, but really, I think that my take on human consciousness has been sorely missing. I think there's a lot of shows out there that don't hit upon what really is going on beneath the surface. They cover the 3D world aspects of things, they cover, the political and the financial machinations. They, cover the effects, well, as I like to say, the realm of effects, the plane of effects. See, what we do here is a little bit differently, and we get into the causal factors. That's what sets what on earth is happening apart. So if we switch back to the presentation slides, what we're really talking about is on an individual level, where is most people's mindset at, okay, in the aggregate? See, because the individuals comprise the whole, so if we change ourselves, then we're going to be contributing to a change on a mass scale. And here's the problem. This is the problem with humanity, where we're at, where we've been at. I think it's getting worse and not better. I think, 10, 12 years ago, when I first started this endeavor, I started this about, 11 going on 12 years ago now, publicly anyway. I think we were in a better position, quite frankly. I think individual consciousness was in an actual better position compared to where it is today. And I'm going to get into the reasons for that. Okay. We have to understand that most people are in a place where they want change to occur on the external level, in the realm of external manifestation, but they don't really want to change who they are, how they think, how they behave. They think they're quite okay, just the way that they are in most cases. And, the New Age and spiritual communities are often too quick to tell them, oh, you're fine, you're perfect just the way you are, okay? But yet, that's not really the case. We have a lot of personal growing and personal shadow work to do upon ourselves. And many people are loath to do that internal work, especially in the so-called truth and freedom movement. You see a lot of people who, they want to see the change happen on the external level, but they don't want to work upon themselves to make that change happen because they don't really understand the first principle of natural law, which is the principle of mentalism. Everything is ultimately mental. And then the second principle, this principle of correspondence, is that which is below is like to that which is above, and that which is above is like to that which is below. So as we change things on an individual level, we are helping to change things on the aggregate or the collective level. And this is what a lot of people in the so-called freedom movement, which I say there is no real freedom movement, there's only a my freedom movement, people wanting different levels of freedom just for their own selfish gain and personal interest. But on a mass scale, as far as humanity goes and ending human slavery, there's very little in the way of an actual freedom movement still to this day, unfortunately. And, people have to understand that the real change has to happen inwardly. That's where this battle really is at. It's in changing your own consciousness. It's in changing your own awareness, your own understanding of what the real causal factors are. So moving to the next slide, unfortunately, people, this is what I actually think of the human condition. This is where humanity is really at as an overall condition in the aggregate sense. And I know people will say, oh, Mark, you're so negative. It's such a condescending way of looking at humanity. But unfortunately, it's exactly true. Okay. And, people will say, oh, this is going to turn people off. So I'm doing it at the very beginning of the new broadcast. I'm trying to explain to people and show to people that I don't really care what anybody thinks about the information that I'm presenting. Okay. I'm not interested in the human reaction to what I'm saying, because if you're just reacting to what I say, you're not paying attention and listening to whether the information that I'm telling people is actually true or not, which is all that ultimately matters. So this is part of falling prey or falling victim to what I call emotional mind control, which I want to see. A lot of people are like, just address people in a more gentle way. It's probably never going to happen with me, folks. This is probably about as gentle as you're ever going to see me get. Okay, I am not here to be gentle with people and be their friends. I've said it endlessly, an infinite number of times. I'm here to speak harsh reality and tell people the absolute bitter truth about what is really going on this planet. I'm not here to hold people by the hand, pat them on the back, say how great of a job they're doing when slavery is continuing and growing worse. Okay, I'm here to explain to people what is actually required, the requirements to making a change for the better happen on a mass scale. And I'm trying to explain to people that we are nowhere near that change in consciousness. We're nowhere near that paradigm shift. Okay, the factors that need to take place for it to happen are not even close to being present on any kind of a scale or factor that is required. Okay, so if we cut back to the slide, my tagline for this show has always been, get as offended as you like. Okay, I'm not interested in whether you find what I'm saying offensive. Okay, we're not here to engage in politically correct language. We're not here to tread very delicately with other people's emotional sensibilities. Okay, you cannot come to the reality or the truth about what is happening with your feels. Okay, you have to engage the mind. You have to engage logic and reason. You have to get your feelings out of the way. You have to get your ego out of the way. Okay, so see, I take a different approach to how a lot of people in the so-called spiritual community. I consider what I do highly spiritual. I consider it really delving into what the epitome or the essence of spirituality really means. And I do try to do that from a streetwise level. I'm not doing this from some pie in the sky, airy-fairy, seeing the world through rose-colored glasses level of spirituality. I think that's false spirituality. Okay, what I'm talking about is getting right down to the nitty gritty, getting right down to the meat and potatoes of things and saying things as they are unapologetically. And it's the viewer, the listener, it's their job to get their ego out of the way. It's their job to get their, skewed sense of emotions when it comes to what is being said out of the way and listen to what's being said. Be present, be in true present moment awareness and actually listen to what's being said instead of your interpretation of what's being said or instead of how you feel while it's being said. You have to listen for the veracity of it, and you have to do that with the logical part of the mind. Okay, and you have to do that feeling comfortable enough. I don't want to berate people completely because I know there's some people who are trying. What I'm going to try to do throughout this series, this new format, is tread a balance between being very honest and oftentimes stern about what's taking place versus trying to inspire people to do something to create change on a real world level. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about my personal frustration with the lack of advance in consciousness. Okay, so moving on in the presentation. What we really have to understand is that humanity is still in a place in consciousness, unfortunately, highly unfortunately, where they still are not at a level of awareness that they can tell reality from fantasy. They are still not at a level where they can pull the veil back and see reality for as it actually is. Very few people. And very few people have delved deeply enough into knowledge to be able to accurately do that. Okay, they pull back one veil and another one presents itself, but they're still not at the real world yet. Okay, and that's because they still lack the overall picture as far as the totality of knowledge that they need to take in is concerned. They have some disparate pieces of it, but they haven't drank deeply enough of the spring of knowledge in order to really put a full worldview picture together. So this has been a focal part of my work from day one, is helping people to get past the perceptions and the mental projections that they put onto the real world, and they're simply artificial constructs of mind. You know, this is part of knowing who we are. I'm going to talk a lot about knowing who we are and knowing who the enemy is. Critical factors of really creating change in the world. And in order to do this, you have to be willing to look at the truth no matter how harsh or ugly it is. And see, that's why people put these blinders on. That's why people throw up these veils of perception. And, you know, we have to be willing to strip all of that away, as painful of a process as that may be. And I think that's where this show sets itself apart. What on Earth is Happening has always been about looking at the harsh and ugly reality and being honest with ourselves about it. This is part of the first step of initiation, which I'm going to talk about, you know, because again, this show is all about the occult, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, for new listeners, maybe new viewers, okay, that word might scare people. But that's what this show is all about. It's about the realm of the hidden. Okay, and it's about pulling the veil away from it to reveal what has been hidden from us. And that's what the word occult means, as we're going to be getting into. So I think this show does that very effectively. Pulls those veils back and I try to endeavor to get people to really be honest with themselves, because that's what we have to do. We need that level of honesty. Okay, again, my work has always made this huge distinction as one of the biggest factors of my work. It has always been about the distinction between the natural, or the world of the real, the actual inherent aspects of nature and reality, versus the artificial realm, the manufactured realm, okay, the realm of simply constructural thoughts and ideas that aren't necessarily in alignment with reality. They are just perceptions of things that can waver very drastically from reality. That artificial world of thought and the artificial realm of ideas, okay, see, the human imagination can be so very powerful in helping us to achieve our goals and helping us to envision a better state for ourselves. But it can also go the other way, and it can imagine all kinds of completely artificial and ideas that are not in keeping with or in alignment with reality whatsoever. And this is what I have always tried to, from day one, make this show about. It's trying to define and create a very real world distinction between the realms of the natural and the realms of the artificial. It's been a defining hallmark of my work, I feel. And that's where natural law comes in. Actual behavior as to whether it is in alignment with the laws of morality of the universe, whether an action causes harm or does not cause harm. And if it causes harm, it's a wrongdoing. And if it does not cause harm, it is an actual right. Then no one has a right to stop us from enacting. So, this distinction between the artificial and the natural, people really have to get into their minds as one of the defining characteristics of everything that we do here on the show. Okay? And that was the underlying basis for the whole natural law seminar that I gave, that really, I think, put a lot of my work on the map. So the next slide is the other aspect of my work that I feel very, very, very few other researchers and presenters and talk show hosts are delving very deeply into, if at all. And that is the deep understanding of the causal factors that have led to the current human condition. See, we can describe the prison all we want. We could describe the prison endlessly, okay? But unless you get down to the actual causal factors of what put us in the prison, why we are in the state that we are in, okay? Describing all the aspects of the cage is not going to do very much in the way of getting you out of the cage, getting you out of the prison that has been built up all around us. And that's what I think, what on earth is happening, and particularly myself, I think that's what I do very effectively. I think that if you don't understand causal factors, you are always treating symptoms, okay? I liken it to a couple of things. I give a couple of brief anecdotes or analogies as to what it's like doing, okay? Imagine a human being continuously putting their hand on a hot stove and being burnt every time they do it and not learning from that, okay? And being like, why are my hands always burnt? I mean, what is going on here? And they don't understand, well, that's the causal connection. You put your hand on the hot burner, it's going to burn. It doesn't matter whether you believe that that's what's going to happen. It doesn't matter whether you want it to happen or not. It's a natural effect, driven by the cause of you deciding to put your hand on the burner. Okay. And unfortunately, what humanity has become, I don't believe it's what humanity is, from their nature level, from the actual underlying inherent aspects of the being, the individual human beings that comprise humanity. It's not our nature, but it is the condition of humanity that we have become sort of a retarded species. And when I say retarded, I'm not using that in a derogatory way to people who have certain conditions of, the brain and nervous system. I'm talking about that we are slowed down in our processing and understanding. The word to retard means to slow down if you look it up in a dictionary, okay? So to become retarded is to have become slowed down in our uptake, in our understanding of what the causal factors of reality are. We are like a retarded species, okay? Slowed down completely to a very slow level in being able to connect cause and effect. And that's the problem. That's one of the entire problems with humanity, that we have a very short-term vision when it comes to seeing what is really taking place, and then going back a little bit in time and connecting that with the cause that set that factor in motion. Okay, so in occult terms, when you study this from occult philosophical perspectives, you will realize that this is part of what is called, in Hermeticism particularly, the law of cause and effect. And if you study that, they break it down into two planes, or two aspects of reality, you could say. There is the plane of effects, and that is the realm of manifested reality. Okay, this is where, things have actually come into physical manifestation in the 3D world. Okay, that's the plane of effects. Once something has come into manifestation in the 3D world, okay, it's what is. It's what is. It has become the truth. It has become the reality of what is. Okay, you cannot affect change from that level of reality because the manifested result is already there. Okay, so if you want to affect change, you have to affect it from the causal level of reality. You have to get down to causality. What made that effect in the real 3D world, in the realm of manifestation, happen? And we have to analyze those causal factors. Well, everything starts in the mind, since everything that comes into 3D manifestation had to exist as a thought or an idea first. Okay, so you have to understand the principle of mentalism, and then you understand the causal factors, or the principle of cause and effect. When you understand the principle of cause and effect, you're going to invariably start to get into natural law and behavioral consequence. Okay, if we behave a certain way, that's going to be the causal factor, and then that's the why that underlies and precedes all physical world manifestation. Okay, then that behavior sets a series of events into motion, and it becomes a manifested reality in the 3D world at a later time, in the plane of effects. See, we're stuck as a species in the plane of effects. We think we're going to rearrange all the deck chairs on the Titanic and somehow stop the ship from sinking, when what we need to do is back up and prevent it from hitting the iceberg. Okay, this is the whole entire problem with the way humanity thinks. Okay, we think we're going to do something in this 3D manifested reality realm of things that have already happened without changing who we are in our mind and in our heart. Okay, and magically the world's just going to change because we wish it to and want it to. And reality doesn't work that way, folks. Sorry to burst your bubble. Get as offended as you like. Cry in your milk about it. Whatever you want to do. Okay, but we have to become adult about this and understand that we have to get down to the causal factor level of reality, the plane of causality, to understand the why that precedes manifestation. And that's what this show has been about since day one. All power to affect change lies in the realm of causality. No power to affect change lies in the realm of effects. Okay? Unfortunately, that's where human consciousness is trapped, in that realm of effects. It needs to get down to that deeper level of awareness to get to the plane of causality and understand the causal factors. Another allegory I gave for that is, like, people think, well, I can continue to do what I have always been doing. Okay, I'm going to dry these clothes by pouring buckets of water on them, and they'll get dry. No, reality doesn't work like that. Okay, you could do that all you want, and you're never going to see the effect change. You could say you want that change all that you want, but you will never get it by continuing to do the same thing that has never gotten you that result. Again, that's the definition of being insane, or as I like to call it, being slow on the uptake, or being retarded as a species. That's where humanity is at right now, unfortunately. So again, what we talk about here on What on Earth is Happening is the world of the occult. And again, this is an off-putting word for a lot of people who aren't familiar with my work already. So as a brief reintroduction to the world of the occult, we have to stop seeing this as evil. We have to stop seeing this as how Hollywood often portrays it, because it's a nonsense worldview about what occultism really is, okay? And we have to realize that what the occult is a body of knowledge. It is hidden knowledge about our reality. That the control class, or as I call the hidden occult priest class, that are controlling everything and are the social engineers of our society, do not want people to understand. We are ruled by what I would call a sorcerer class, okay? And you have to not look at that in the terms of Harry Potter sorcery, okay? Again, Hollywood portrays this allegorically to dramatize it. Okay, what we have to understand is what a sorcerer is someone who knows the hidden laws of nature and the hidden dynamics of human consciousness and the human psyche. And they know that in very deep awareness, in fullness. And yet they have made the free will decision to, instead of uplift humanity and try to increase human consciousness by teaching that knowledge and spreading it in an egalitarian way to all of human society, they have chosen to hoard it for themselves, and in doing so, wield a power differential that is gained by their knowledge differential. Okay, so I'll say that again. The sorcerer class, or the priest class of the dark occult, as I call them, is wielding a power differential that they have come into by way of a knowledge differential. Okay, so I liken this to a very advanced psychologist, and that's what the occult is. It's very advanced human psychology. Okay, so if you have an extremely advanced psychologist that knows just about everything there is to know about how the human mind works, and he develops a hatred for someone for whatever reason it may be, and the other person has no idea about their own psyche, has no idea about their own mental, emotional, and spiritual development, how much of a number do you think that extremely advanced, maybe the most advanced psychologist on earth could do to someone who has absolutely no clue about themselves and has not looked into psychology one bit for one moment of their lives, if they were so inclined to really do a number on that person psychologically? Well, that's where humanity is at, because humanity is that person that has no idea about its actual self, and the control class, as I call the dark occult priest class or the sorcerer class, that is engaged in social engineering and mind control practices, is that advanced psychologist who has that level of knowledge and is wielding it for their selfish purposes, for their purposes to dumb down and to control. Okay? And that's what we have to understand the occult is. It's just knowledge that anyone can take in. And if they take it in, they will level the playing field. That power differential will go away because that knowledge differential, that knowledge gap will be leveled. That's what I'm trying to help move humanity in that direction. That's what I'm trying to help do here on What on Earth is Happening, and have been since day one. Okay, so let's look at a working definition of what the occult, the world of the occult and occultism is in the next slide. So occultism is actually the study of the hidden laws of nature, specifically those laws which are at work in the invisible, mental, and spiritual domain, far more than the laws that are at work in the visible or physical world. Okay, so we're talking about laws that actually govern human conduct. Okay, we're talking about laws that bring to us the result of what we put out into the world, and then we are going to have to live that result as far as our human experience goes. Okay, so the universe in that sense acts like a huge mirror. It's a mirroring process of what we put out, we ultimately get back from creation and from the universe itself in the form of experience. And that's what the whole process is, understanding how to change our behavioral free will choice, okay? And then align our behavior to the laws of morality so that we get the result that we say we want, which is freedom, peace, order, justice, etc. Okay? So that's what that's what we're talking about when we talk about studying the world of the occult and the occult laws of nature, the hidden laws of nature. Okay? So therefore, occultism involves the acceptance of a much wider worldview than that which is ordinarily taken by the everyday human being. We have to expand our worldview into understanding the world is not some just mechanized machine of pure matter and materialism. Too many people are locked into that Newtonian scientismic worldview. And that's exactly what it is. It's scientism. It's not science. And it's actually been proven an inaccurate paradigm or an inaccurate worldview of the universe for over 100 years easily. And yet many people still accept the Newtonian paradigm of materialism as being accurate, and it most certainly is not. So, we have to understand that there is a living dynamic intelligence that underlies everything in nature, in the natural world, and that is the power of mind. Okay, whatever you want to call that, the creative force, God. I'm perfectly comfortable with that term. Many people are not, and I could care less whether anyone is or not. It's your personal choice whether to be comfortable with that. But there is a living dynamic intelligence that underlies everything, and that is pure consciousness, and that is what gives rise to physical form through vibratory energy. And when you study deeper into the realm of the occult, which is not a religion, it is hidden science. It is absolutely provable hidden science. When we delve into new sciences that are emerging, including quantum mechanics, new physics, new biology, epigenetics, we find that all of these aspects that have been discussed regarding consciousness in the realm of the occult and occultism teachings throughout history have been borne out to be true in modern science. True modern science, not the world of scientism. And this is the merging that is very, very slowly happening between the realms of science and spirituality. And I'd like to see that advance and move faster, but unfortunately, much of humanity is just still too stuck in ego, as we're going to be talking about here today. An occultist, the definition of an occultist then may be defined as those who study all of the laws of nature, not just the physical laws, but the physical and spiritual dynamics that are inherent in the natural world, both those that are readily seen and those which are much more difficult to see with simply the physical eyes or with the measuring instruments that we use as part of scientific instrumentation alone. Okay, so that's what the occult is. It's a holistic worldview of understanding and knowledge. And too few people have delved deeply into it. That's why we're in the situation that we are. The worst of our species has delved into it in a deep way and has used that knowledge to basically keep humanity under its thumb. And what I'm attempting to do is to inspire people to become what I call de-occultists. See, as long as the realm of the occult, the realm of hidden knowledge and hidden science and hidden psychology remains hidden, as long as it remains occulted. Again, the word occult comes from the Latin occultare, which means to hide or to conceal. Okay, as long as it stays hidden, slavery is going to continue. We're not going to have any kind of a paradigm shift in consciousness that leads to true human freedom as long as the occult remains the occult. So I'm trying to inspire people to look into this world of hidden knowledge and to understand it at a deep fundamental level. When we do that, we're going to start to understand ourselves more, because that's what this is all really about. The occult is actually a deep study of the self. That's what human psychology is. And this is hidden human psychology. Okay, so we have to become those master psychologists through our study of the world of the occult. Then when we do that, then we're going to see the playing field start to level on a worldwide basis. And we're going to see the ability of people to really take an empowering charge over their lives and get out of this control that we've all been put under, specifically the mind control that we've been put under. We're going to see that be able to be done far more effectively as more people study this knowledge. Moving to the next slide, unfortunately, we don't have that right now. We have what is akin to chess pieces being moved on a giant board that represents the earth. And, you could say that this is between the forces of good and evil. Okay. And unfortunately, evil's kicking good's ass right now. Okay. Good hasn't even sat down at the board, that hasn't learned the rules of the chess game and hasn't shown up to play. And the evil side is basically the chess master that is running rampant on the other side. Okay. And if we want to change that, if we want to see any headway being made, we have to start to really get down to the underlying causal factors of this game and understand its rules. And that's what natural law is. Okay. And this is something that so many people are so loath to do. They're so loath to getting down to those causal factors. They think they're just going to analyze things endlessly to death from the 3D perspective and never go into the mental and spiritual aspects of this. Okay. And they're going to change things by putting new people in office. They're going to change things by putting a new financial system in, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. And people's minds are going to be just as degraded and just as under mind control as they ever have been. And yet we're going to have a wonderful new reality. Utter bunk bullshit. Okay? Get as offended as you like. There is no way to change reality from that level of ignorance, from non-awareness, okay? You're just going to be a chess piece being moved on the board instead of a grand champion who's actually really changing the reality by really moving the pieces, okay? And we're going to continue to get our asses kicked and handed to us as a result of that level of ignorance. So we have to become mature about this and understand we have a lot more work and a lot more knowledge to take in. And again, that's why I'm going to keep re-emphasizing on this show, okay? Go back to all my former podcasts, okay? Listen to them all 196 of them that precede this one in order, okay? You need to do that to get the big picture, to get the worldview picture established that you need to understand material going forward. Okay, there are prerequisites for the knowledge I'm going to be talking about, and they're in the podcast. whatonearthishappening.com/podcast, or just hit the podcast tab or the podcast button on the left-hand side of the site. Okay, and that's going to take time and attention. These are the spiritual currencies. I find that most people who really lay hard into my work and say, I don't like Passio, I don't like what he does, this and that, they haven't listened to the material in its fullness. They've listened to bits and pieces on YouTube. Okay. And if you do that, you are not going to understand what I'm really talking about. Okay. I'm trying to explain to you, you go to YouTube and listen to some Mark Passio videos, you'll get a tiny bit of what I say, but you are not going to understand the totality of the picture. You're going to get the totality of the picture from my podcast series, the audio and the associated images and documents that go with the podcast audio series. You can get that on my gifts area of the website, the podcast flash drive, which I make available, which has all 196 episodes with all of the images and documents that go along with it on one flash drive. Okay, so you can get that on the gifts area. Okay, so going back to the slides, I just want to let everybody know, in order for us to really change from being a piece moved on the board to being the chess champion that's going to really change the nature of the game, much, much more deep level knowledge is required. And most people aren't there. They have studied cursorily. They have looked at things at a very non-deep, non-penetrating level that is just skirts the periphery of things. And then they make the mistake that I'm going to now try to reach out to other people with what I think I know that I haven't really studied in it all of its fullness and make a big change. And that's a big mistake to do. Get yourself in the position where you've gathered the grammar and you've developed the understanding to know what it means first, and then exercise your rhetoric or put that out into the world. So where is humanity at in consciousness? We're still under mind control, deep mind control. And folks, let me tell you something. Everybody's like, oh, well, we're making progress. More people are waking up daily. That may be true, but percentage-wise, I don't think things are changing that much. I think things were better back in 2007 when I really started doing this type of work than they are today. I think there were more people questioning things. There were more people that were tuning out of the mainstream media. There were more people that were questioning 9/11, okay, and what really happened on that day. And today, the mainstream media has ramped up its efforts. And people are going to say, oh, people don't really pay attention to television that much anymore. Well, that's partially true, and partially that's not where the entirety of mainstream media is at, okay? It has moved to the realm of the internet. It is censoring things on the internet, as I'm going to talk about. We have to understand at a very fundamental level that they've ramped their efforts up tremendously to continue the brainwashing, to continue the social engineering, to continue the propaganda coming out of the television and the internet, okay? And we have to understand that we're not as a society, anywhere closer to really truly freeing our minds and getting it out of what the control class, how the control class wants us to think. Okay, nowhere closer to doing that than we were a decade ago, more than a decade ago. I think we were in a better position then. Technology has advanced, the reach of media through the internet has advanced, and most people are still connected, their minds are still connected to these sorcerers' worldview, okay? And they have us on their strings like puppets. And we have to break that chain, those chains. We have to break that connection, okay? Shut off that signal and delve really into powerful works that can help us to understand deep moral philosophy. Okay? We have to understand natural law at a far deeper level. There's so many moral relativists. The amount of moral relativism is mind-numbing. It's spiritual cancer, as I like to call moral relativism. So many people think, oh, we get to make up what right and wrong are, and it's perfectly fine if something's perfectly okay to do in one place, and in another place you could be thrown in a cage for doing the same behavior. I mean, this is utter sheer nonsense that people have to get their heads out of the muck and believe that we make up rights. Human beings make up rights. This is what actual people in the so-called freedom movement believe. And they think they're going to free themselves up as a result of continuing to think in the gutter. It's spiritual gutter cancer, okay? You might as well go lay in a sewer, okay, rather than think like that, because that's exactly what it is the equivalent of doing, okay? And who continues to propagate this worldview? The media, the so-called mainstream media, the established media that are the enforcement arm in the mental sense of the sorcerer control class. That's what's depicted here by there's this one hand controlling the media talking head, and then he's controlling everybody else like a puppet. But that sorcerer that you don't see is behind the scenes, who's really, really directing what's going on to get that information, that poisonous information out there to the public. And, look, so many people still don't get this. There are people who are going to be listening today that are like, yeah, we get this, Mark. Not a lot of people really get this in society. Most people still trust the media, okay? We're not, we are not as advanced as we think we are, because a lot of us talk to each other about this. So many people believe that the media is doing their best to try to bring the truth to us. I was actually in a pub with a friend, and we got into a discussion about whether people are waking up or not. And I asked her, I'm not going to mention any names, I don't know whether anybody wants their name public, but I asked this person, please go around to people in this pub right now and just, if you want to do it, if you want to do a little social experiment, and she said, yeah, I'm willing to do it. So just ask them, do you think the people who are members of the mainstream media are really doing their best to try to bring truth to the American public by their broadcasts and what they put on the air? She went around to everybody in this pub, and every person said, yes, they believe that they are trying to do their best to get the word out about what's really going on to the American public. Can you believe it? That's where we're at in consciousness. That's exactly where humanity is at in consciousness. If you don't think so, you are exercising a skewed perspective because you know that that's not really true. And most of the friends that you hang out with know that it's true, that it's not true. Okay? So we have to stop trying to ascribe our level of consciousness to other people or to the bulk of humanity. Okay? Because we're never going to be able to put our thumb accurately on the pulse of where humanity is really at and be honest with ourselves and have an accurate understanding. If we're going to gauge this dynamic by how we ourselves, who already understand a little bit about what's going on in the world, and our friends, our circle of friends that we choose to be around, currently think. Because we're either all the way awoken or partially awoken, and the average body of humanity is nowhere near that state of consciousness. And that's what the great work is to do, is to help to wake those people up. Okay, it's not just about waking ourselves up and helping our own consciousness and our own condition, but it's about reaching out to other people with knowledge and helping them to understand what we have come to understand. And we do that most effectively when we gather that knowledge in its complete form. So, what's happening now is, as a small group of people are waking up in the aggregate sense, and they are basically positioning themselves as potential mavens to reach out to other people and to help change their consciousness through what they put out on social media and on video sharing sites and on websites in general. We are seeing a pushback by the established mainstream media and the established technological giants in the tech sector. We're seeing an effort to censor the free flow of truth. And this is a very dangerous game that's being played, folks. Okay? And look, I don't care why people think they're doing it for political reasons or to silence Trump supporters or whatever, to silence people who want to, buy into this left-right nonsense worldview that I'm going to talk about, okay? I could care less about the political aspects of it, okay? Because it's all bunk nonsense. Politics is slavery. Government is slavery, okay? We need to stop euphemizing it and call it what it is, human slavery, okay? So people need to know right up front, for people who may be new listeners to the show, I support no politicians. I support no aspects of government. I am a radical spiritual anarchist. And anarchy means no masters, no slaves. I am against the dynamic of slavery in all of its forms because slavery is an abomination unto creation. I stand for free will above all else. And I stand for free will in alignment with the laws of morality, of creation, which is what natural law is. Okay? That's what spiritual anarchy is all about. Okay? Natural law-based spiritual anarchy. That's the natural condition of humanity, not the artificially inspired condition of government slavery that we are put in through completely erroneous dogmatic worldviews and beliefs. Okay? So what's happening right now is to try to suppress and keep a lid on top of the emerging worldview of true spiritual anarchy. And not just that, just even like anything that conflicts with the established power hierarchies, political power and worldview that they want to propagate out to the world. They are trying to literally censor the free flow of thought by shutting people's social media sites down, YouTube channels down, websites, etc. Okay? And let me tell you something, folks. Once it gets to the point where speech is starting to be shut down, hot war is right around the corner. And if you don't think so, just start to look at where human history has taken us to this point. And I'm telling you, this is one of the most dangerous things that could possibly be done by technological giants, by the social engineers, by these tech companies themselves. They don't understand the can of worms, the Pandora's box that they are opening up that will not, what they make pop out of that box will never be able to be put back in. I'm telling you, it's not going to cause anything but chaos, suffering, and death for humanity, okay? It's like we need to really champion the idea of freedom of speech and let the ideas flow freely so that we can have engaged discourse about this stuff, okay? And, that doesn't mean just let people bully people and say, you're going to live under our worldview and our political paradigm whether you want to or not. We have to have a discourse about what real free will is. We have to have a discourse about what a real voluntary society is and would look like. And show people that that is the better way of living in the world. And it is the right way of living in the world. It's not just better, it's the right, correct, moral way of living in the world. It's the only moral way of living in the world. Okay? So, the censorship thing makes me probably the most upset and borderline, violent / ultra angry than almost anything else, because it's like that's the point where I say it may need to go hot when you start taking people's freedom of speech to communicate ideas that can change consciousness away. Then you're leaving only one option, and that's physical rebellion, and that should never be taken off the table and ruled out either. We have to always keep that self-defensive option on the table when it comes to tyranny of government. And people who think that that's not possible or could never happen, you're also delusional and kidding yourself. We went into a whole section on the psychological fear of self-defense and rebellion in former episodes, and we may revisit that again in future episodes. But let me tell you something. One thing I do know is the thing that's going to bring that negative eventuality, which I'm trying to avoid by explaining to people how you can do this in consciousness, okay, and how you could do this in your care-based emotions for truth. Okay, your care for truth, and then getting that out there to other people. That's one of the highest forms of love that you can put out into the world. Okay. But if it's not done that way and we make it impossible and technology and the people who are controlling that and, the people who are in the mainstream media and the people who control them try to make that change impossible, as Kennedy said before he was assassinated, those who make peaceful revolutions impossible will make violent revolutions inevitable. And that's what I absolutely see as a potentiality if this censorship continues and grows worse. So, the people who want to open up that can of worms, I'm telling you, it's not going to end well, and we have to really push back against that by putting more speech out there. And one of the best ways we could do this is to become technologically literate. We have to understand how technology works. Far too few people can do anything like what we're doing here on the airwaves today. Far too few people understand how to even make their own web page. The internet used to be an eclectic grouping of web pages with all different worldviews. And now it got compressed and compressed and compressed where we're herded into what is referred to now as internet ghettos. Okay, where we're fighting with, other strangers and trying to convince them of, that they should think like us instead of just putting the information out there. I want a lot of people to just put information out there into the world. Publish your findings and your understanding. That's what people who engage in science do. You do your experimentation, you formulate a hypothesis, you do your experimentation, and then you publish your results. Okay, this is what we need. We need more internet publishing. Okay, we need to become our own content creators. If you don't like the way somebody else is doing something, don't complain about it. Go do something yourself. And you need technical competency in order to do that. And that's the problem with the so-called freedom movement. We have too many armchair quarterbacks. We have too many backseat drivers. We don't have enough actual content creators doing the great work themselves. Stop doing this, start doing this. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to help make that change happen? Become technologically literate and get your voice out to thousands or millions of people. And the way to do that is to understand how to publish on the internet. All right. So I'm going to be doing a whole series on that called How to Become the New Media. It might be a webinar series separate from the What on Earth is Happening video broadcast. We're going to see how we're going to work that in future, in the future. But I have a whole seminar plan called How to Become the New Media, where I'm going to teach people software. I'm going to teach people how to do stuff like this. Okay. And, when you become technically competent, then the power of publishing, the power of, creatively getting your ideas out there to other people is entirely in your hands. Okay. I look at Facebook and YouTube as like, these are canvases that these people have handed you and said, as soon as you paint something on the canvas that we don't like, we're going to pull the canvas away from you. Okay. A website is a little bit different than that. Your personal website or your personal domain, it's your canvas. You're paying for the service. You could publish, essentially whatever you want up there, and nobody has any say about what content is published there. Okay. So, it's a lot freer of a vehicle of expression when you know how to publish yourself on your own website. That's what I would love to see a lot more of rather than the Facebook commandos that I'm going to talk about. Okay, so another deep aspect of my work that I want to reemphasize, I'm going to be getting into, and that is to know the self and know the enemy. And the other is going to be, what is the process of initiation? Okay, so this is a quote from Sun Tzu's book, The Art of War. He said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Brilliant words, regardless of what you think of the individual who wrote them, regardless of what you think the purpose of what the writing was about. That's not what I'm here to discuss in this slide. I'm discussing the idea of that real victory in any battle, particularly a spiritual battle that we are engaged in now, comes from deep knowledge of who we are and deep knowledge of the factors that we are up against. Okay, and often they're really one and the same, because the enemy is just a reflection of the negative aspects of what's really going on inside of each one of us at the aggregate level when it all comes together and is all taken into account. Okay, the more we work upon those shadow and dark, negative, so-called negative aspects of ourselves, and bring those to the surface, and really understand what are the driving factors behind them through shadow work, we are going to understand ourselves better, and as a result, we're going to understand what we are up against, the enemy, the so-called enemy, much better. Okay, and what he's saying here is, if you only have half the picture, right, you're going to lose at least half the time. Okay, so in the spiritualist communities, the so-called New Age communities, right, they only have half the picture. The picture that they have is they do have a pretty decent understanding of self, right? They understand consciousness at an accurate enough level. Okay, they could go further in that and understand really what the real paradigm shift, the aspects of the real paradigm shift that need to take place are. Okay, but what they don't understand is who the enemy is. You go to some spiritualist communities, you go to like maybe a New Age expo, let's say, you ask people, oh, are you politically engaged? Do you believe in the Democratic or Republican parties? And they'll tell you, yeah, they believe in politics, they believe in government. They don't understand who the external enemy is. They don't understand that there is occult sorcerers that are driving the whole political dynamics, and that really are entrenched in power behind the scenes, behind the deep state. They don't get that the world is run by this religious priest class. They only understand the spiritual aspects of it. So they don't know who the enemy is. Okay? Now, not just that, the enemy is those who are ignorant of how that power dynamic really works. That's the real enemy. Ignorance is that real enemy. And they're not even aware of how ignorant they are of those factors. And they think it doesn't matter in many cases. So they only have half the picture, if that. Okay? And therefore, they're going to succumb half the time in battle, in spiritual battle. Then you have the other side, the other aspect. So I'm going to get into this a little bit in my ABKCO talk. My main presentation is going to be Anarchy and the Occult Part 2, Religion versus Initiation. Okay, so I'm going to get into this dynamic in this, where the people in the anarchist community or in the freedom community in general, they have the other half of the equation. They tend to know more about the conspiratorial aspects of reality, if you will. Okay, they tend to know more about, there's people behind the scenes of entrenched politics that are trying to make the world, build the world in their own image and likeness. Okay, and become gods and rule everybody. Okay, they get that power aspect of things, but what they lack in a very big way, in a very pronounced way, is they lack the spiritual understanding. They lack the understanding of self. They may know a lot of aspects of who or what the enemy is, but they have a different aspect of ignorance, which is the real enemy. And their ignorance is in their spiritual understanding of self and consciousness, and the underlying causal factors regarding natural law and how that brings to us the consequences of our behavior. The spiritualist community understands that a little bit better than the anarchist community or the politically engaged freedom movement. Okay, we have to blend these and merge the two so that we take the left brain anarchists and their understanding of the 3D aspects of what's going on and bring them together with the right brain spiritual community that has an understanding of the consciousness aspects of what's going on, and bring that all together in a holistic way so that we truly know the self and the enemy. When we do that, then we're going to make some headway into creating a world based in true voluntary interaction and true freedom. But not until, because we only have half the picture or the other. Okay, and some of us have none. The bulk of humanity doesn't know who they are or who the enemy is. Okay, I'm only talking about the halfway awakened, collective groups that have somehow taken a collective identity and called themselves, anarchists or the freedom movement or the spiritualist movement or the New Age community, etc. Okay, halfway in their understanding at the very best, and that's not going to get it done. It's never going to get it done. Okay, so again, this is part of what the ARC helps with. This is part of what my podcast series helps with. And, obviously I'm not the be all and end of it. You got to research all these other researchers that I point people toward, and develop a very eclectic, holistic understanding from eclectic knowledge, eclectic sources. That's what the key to effective research and understanding is all about. So moving on to the next slide, another hallmark of this understanding that we have to develop and the process that we have to go through to get there is another thing that this whole What on Earth is Happening series of information really focuses on as a central theme, and that is actually initiating ourselves into deeper levels of knowledge. Okay, what I call here on this slide occult initiation, or truly beginning the spiritual journey. Initiation just means starting something. You've initiated it, you've put it forth, you've set it into motion in the world. You have started, you have begun. One of the things that I told people in the past from my work in the dark occult, again, for people who do not know that background, my personal background, I was involved with some of these sorcerers, with some of these mind controllers, with some of these Satanists and dark occultists, okay, who are really running the show behind the scenes in the true entrenched aspects of power, not the visible ones that they let you see on the TV screen, okay? And during my time with them, one of the phrases that they called humanity, in addition to referring to humanity as simply the dead, yes, that is what they called people. They don't call them the masses, the sheep, the hordes of humanity. They refer to human beings as the dead, is one of the phrases that they use, believe it or not, okay? And as horrible as that may seem, it is largely accurate because they see consciousness as a threefold manifestation of our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. And if you aren't building an ability to think, okay, and you're dwelling in total ignorance, well, the thought aspect of consciousness is largely destroyed or inactive. And if you're not truly feeling from a heart-based level, and understanding, that what we are doing or not doing is actually affecting other people in their lives and creating suffering, then you're not really using your emotions to care enough about the truth and what's going on, and so you're dead at a heart level. And certainly most of the people who engage in the dynamics of ignorance and apathy like that aren't doing anything to create real world change. And so they are in a state of laziness and cowardice, often the two states combined, and therefore their actions aren't really present. And so when all of those aspects of consciousness are not active or deadened, they look at it like you're not really alive. You're a being that has actually undergone spiritual death. So they call them the dead. That is their actual rationale. We're not doing anything to actual people. These aren't even people. These are dead. They're dead husks. They're shells, that had the potential for the development of a soul, but didn't utilize any of that potential and have just let themselves wither and die before they've physically died. Folks, I wish I could say it weren't true. I wish I could say, when I heard their rationale for this, I couldn't just go, you're completely and utterly wrong. That's not humanity. That's not where we're at. Because it is where we're at. And what the first step of initiation, as I'm going to talk about here, is don't lie to yourself. Be honest. Stop lying to yourself. This is why people hate my message in many cases. That's why they can't really hear what I'm saying. They hear the physical tones of my voice, but they can't really incorporate the understanding of it, because what I say, because it is dark and ugly, they feel it cannot be true. Okay? So they're not really looking for the veracity in the statement. They want to react emotionally, have a visceral emotional reaction, but not really hear what's being said. Okay? This is the state where humanity is really at, unfortunately. And I wish I could say different. But I don't want to blow smoke up your ass and lie to you. And that's why I don't lie to myself about it. Can it change? Yes. Possibility and potential is always there. Will it change? That's up to the human will. Okay, that's up to what will we do about it. And that's what I'm trying to inspire. So again, I'm trying to tread this medium, or, this, balance point between being honest with you, and that is ugly, versus saying we're actually still today in a position where we can actually change this and do something about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't come back on the air. If I thought nothing could be done, I would just shut up and let the chips fall where they may. We can still drive this evolutionary progress forward if we engage ourselves and enact our will. Okay, so this is done through what I refer to as occult initiation. And these were it was a five-fold process. And this was done in conjunction with the five senses and then the three elements of the trivium: knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and then the four elements of the quadrivium, which was arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, the quantifications of the trivium, the ability to actually quantify knowledge and measure it and gauge it and filter it, etc., process it. So let's look at these steps of initiation. Very important. I'm going to be covering this in my workshop at ABKCO as well. The first step, stop lying. Now, this means stop lying to others, but first and foremost, above all other forms of lying, stop lying to yourself. You have to be honest with yourself about where you are and not be necessarily ashamed of that if it falls short of where you want to be and could be. And that's how you set a direction. You are honest with where you are at, okay? So let's say you have health to work upon. You know, you're not where you want to be physically. There's always the ability to say, here's where I'm at. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to get to here. I'm going to work on that. Then you could say, I'm going to psychologically improve upon myself. And you have to know where you're at there and be honest with your assessment. And then you can move forward from that point. But you can't move forward from any point if you're lying to yourself, first and foremost. Okay? You can't tell the truth to others if you're lying to yourself. Okay? About where you are at and where humanity is at. And that's why a lot of the things I say on this show upset people. But that's where real care and love come in. You will say things that are upsetting to people if they are true. You will not hold back from the potential injury of their feelings to lie to them. This is what the mainstream media does. They want to talk to you in sweet, pleasant tones of their voice, dress all super professional in their three-piece suit, and then they're going to just absolutely lie. Every word that comes out of their mouth, tell you things that are not true, that are going to totally confuse you and bring you into a worldview that could never possibly lead to freedom. But they'll do it with the most pleasant tones of voice imaginable. Okay? What I'm here to do is shake you and take you out of that trance and say, it doesn't matter. Absolutely doesn't matter how someone says a message to you. That's emotional mind control if you think so. All that matters is whether the person is telling you the truth. You have to gauge the veracity, not how it sounds, not what they look like, not how it makes you feel because you're not comfortable with it. That's mind control if you respond like that. You are under mind control if you respond like that. And that's why a lot of the people who say I can't handle Passio. I don't like the way he delivers the message. Well, that's emotional mind control. You know, I could listen to people that are so boring and dry and repetitive and monotone. I could listen to people who are saying things in sweet, pleasant tones. I could listen to people who are angry the whole time they talk. You know, I try to balance and be honest emotionally with people. All right. But I could hear it anyway. And all I'm listening for is it accurate? Is it true? You know, and then I'm going to take what I can use from what's being said. That's real logical processing of information, okay? And that's what we have to learn to do as adult human beings. We have to teach that skill to our children so then they can grow up to be human beings that engage that true dynamic of truth discovery. All right, so the second step of the initiatory process is stop dreaming. This means stop engaging in cognitive dissonance. So like the first thing, lying, that's saying that the world is some other way than it actually is, right? This second step is stop believing that the world is the way you think it is and look at it for as it actually is, okay? So dreaming means that you are seeing the world as you want it to be instead of actually how it is. And this is what a lot of people do. They think that the world is exactly how they envision it to be versus looking at it from an objective viewpoint, an objective perception, okay? And they want to see it as they feel that it is instead of actually how it really is. And that's holding these two contradictory ideas in your mind at the same time. Your perception of how something is, even though it's inaccurate, versus the reality of how it is, and then that are completely at odds with each other, and yet you hold those viewpoints simultaneously. That is dreaming. It's called magical thinking. magical thinking, believing the world to be what you want it to be versus or instead of how it actually is. It's been called in psychological communities cognitive dissonance is the term for it. So we have to stop engaging in cognitive dissonance. The third aspect of occult initiation, or becoming someone who has started truly in earnest, started the spiritual journey, is to learn how to think. And as simple as that term may be, there's so much involved in it. Okay? This means how to really logically engage in the process of truth discovery. And this is done through the eclectic gathering of information. That is the knowledge step of the trivium process. The three-way path to truth is what trivium means. Then processing that data and coming to an accurate understanding of what it means, which is the understanding process. Okay? And then outputting that back into the world to teach others. Okay, that is the wisdom process. It is what we do with what we know and doing the right thing with what we have come to know and understand. Okay, so that is the wisdom aspect of the trivium process. Knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Okay, and this is the process of truth discovery that was taught in the ancient mystery traditions in the ancient world, that come to us today through what is known as the classical liberal arts education methodology, as opposed to the new communist-based and socialist-based, outcome-based educational system method, which is taught in public schools throughout the world today. Okay, so learning how to think, not being taught what to think, but actually learning how to come to through actual logical thinking processes to come to an understanding of how we discover what reality really is. So this is an ontological process, an epistemological process, I should say. Okay, so moving to the next step of occult initiation, live in the present moment. And this is a very powerful one. I did an entire show in the past on present moment awareness. It means start from where you are at. Don't jump ahead. Don't necessarily live in the past, okay? Understand the past from a perspective of how it will help you to understand what's going on in the present, but live and work upon yourself and others in the present, okay? We have to engage with what's taking place right now in the here and now, and the present moment. In the present moment, there is power. Okay, we can't live in shame or anxiety over what occurred in the past. Otherwise, I'd be beating myself up 24 hours a day with the mistakes I made in the past. Mistakes are there to learn from. We learn from them, we pick ourselves up, we move on. Okay, and we do that in the present moment. And then we are going to try to accurately gauge how the situation is right now in our world, in the here and now. Not looking to some external savior, not looking to some future time or past time, but being honest about what is taking place right now and working from that moment. And in there is empowerment. In that present moment, centering, we empower ourselves. Very powerful concept. Even in the spiritualist community, you will find this concept if it is taught properly. And I would suggest to you that in the true occult teachings, in many different traditions, this actual being present in the present moment and working from that point is made very clear. And you could gain an accurate understanding by studying occult wisdom, studying that aspect of it. The fifth and final step of the initiatory process is to activate the physical body. Activation of the physical body because it will be necessary. It is not to be shunned. The physical is not inferior to the spiritual, nor is the spiritual inferior to the material and physical. They are one in the same in their importance and necessity. So we need to take care of our physical selves. We need to eat right. We need to exercise. We need to engage in the dynamic of understanding the importance of self-defense and preparedness, okay? And when we do that, then we are truly prepared and activated physically as well as mentally and spiritually and emotionally, okay? So incredibly powerful tools for the people who are starting on the spiritual journey that the tradition of mystery school initiation or occult initiation gave to their beginning learners. And, folks, I talk about this all the time, but, how we value knowledge today is so degraded from how we valued it in the past, how many people valued it in the past. I mean, there were trials and tribulations I'm going to talk about in the third show back when I talk about the arc drive that initiates had to endure that would almost cost them their lives, or could cost them their lives if they failed at these trials, just to get into the mystery school to gain the knowledge of the occult. And now today, people just throw books in the trash, and just ignore reality at will, and are just proud to live in the ignorance that they are living in, unfortunately. But we have to get back to that reverence for knowledge, okay? We have to get back to that deep hunger for knowing ourselves and knowing our situation and knowing what the real enemy is. And, when we develop that care for truth and that reverence for truth, then again, I feel that that's when a real paradigm shift or a true change in consciousness is going to take place. So the real meat of what I want to talk about today is that we're nowhere near that. We are nowhere near that development of care and knowledge in our world, okay? And then certainly nowhere near acting rightly upon it. We are still in a state where we are controlled by the puppet masters of the world. We are still in a state where we believe politics is real. We actually believe that it matters who we vote for, whether we vote for one master over another master, okay? When we're all enslaved by the system called government, okay? And the system called the belief in authority. We're all puppets on the string following the dictates of the masters, and if we don't obey, then the masters send their henchmen to punish us in whatever ways they see fit. That's not freedom. Voting for that certainly isn't freedom. Okay? It's a belief system. And what it really is, folks, is a religion, as I'm going to talk about. That this is a religious worldview that, left and right hands are not connected to the same body. Okay? That they're, that we somehow are engaging some true freedom of choice, picking a political master. And folks, they have us right where they want us. These social engineers, they've done a better job, as I'm going to give you actual numbers to prove, of politically polarizing people through this dialectical process of giving people a false choice, which is what dialectics is. It's advancing a predetermined agenda by presenting people with false choices that they get to choose from. But no matter which choice they make, the predetermined agenda is advanced. That's what the Hegelian dialectic in particular is, and that's what I call polarization dialectics. You're creating a false war between people, but no matter who comes out, no matter what choice is made, the actual slavery system advances in its march toward totalitarianism. And people still don't understand this. How many people are still so-called politically engaged or thinking that voting for somebody is going to change something? Never has, never will. Because you're not voting to abolish slavery. You're voting to put a new slave master into that position of power, so-called power. They're not even the person in power. They're being held by an oligarchical group of occult priest class slave masters that sits behind them at a higher hierarchical level than those who are at the seen political level are at in the whole system of control. So what I want to look at today is how bad this political polarization has gotten in the modern world. Okay? So the polarization dialectics are driven largely by political polarization, or what has traditionally been referred to as the left-right political paradigm, or the left versus right political paradigm. In other words, you have liberal versus conservative, Democrat versus Republican. Okay? And, we need to stop just even calling this politics. We need to even stop calling it left versus right, polarization between the political parties. I call it cult polarization because you're really choosing between the donkey cult and the elephant cult. These are just cults, okay? They're religious cults. That's all they are. They're not based on anything that is actually existing inherently in reality. They are belief systems that are driven by religious thought. And the religious thought that underlies it all is the belief in human authority, that some people are masters and others are slaves, which I'm going to analyze and break down. And the people who actually engage in these systems are simply cult members. That's all they are. They are members of religious cults. That's what politics is, okay? And they have to give you two because they have to mirror the abandonment issues that are the deeply underlying psychological occult factors of why people are drawn to one political party or the other. The left, or the so-called liberal, I would refer to it as the neoliberal party, okay, is all about the motherly abandonment issues. So what does it want government to provide? Okay, in this nested, deep, subconscious, psychological driven factor of having mommy issues, okay, or having motherly abandonment issues. This aspect of the cult of government always wants their political masters to provide for them. Provide something that is lacking. Take care of us. Be the nurturer. Be the one who gives us things for free out of concern and love. Okay? Not to teach us to do for ourselves. Okay? But say, demand obedience to their aspect, their definition of morality and contribution to other people. Don't do that through charity. Do that through, actually passing violent-driven political laws under man's law. Okay, the point here is this is a motherly abandonment issue dynamic that is going on deep in the nested, often subconscious or unconscious aspects of the psychology. And then we project that into the external domain. And then we want government to become the mother that was either lacking or absent, okay, that we found lacking in our own developmental lives or absent in our developmental lives, okay? Then the opposite side of the spectrum is the Republican, or the conservative aspect. And this is the people who identify with this largely have the daddy issues, okay? And this is the fatherly abandonment issue. So what do the people project and want from this side of the political class? They want protection. They want it to be this strong father figure to go out and police the rest of the world and keep everybody safe, which is the traditional masculine role, okay? And you see that that's why there always have to be just two, because they are proxy parents psychologically. See, this is what people never get to with the whole political paradigm. They never get to that occult understanding of what it is. When you hit people with this and they really get it and they see it as true, which it is, okay, then they're like, their mind is blown and they're like, whoa, I never thought about it that way. But yet the occult controllers did. That's why they set this system up this way. They very deeply know what's going on in the mass human psychology, and the bulk of the people do not. And that's why easy prey. Very easy prey. It's a child's game for them, actually. Okay? And, they're not concerned about me. They're not going to take a hit or a swat at me. Not going to happen. They've already told me as such in so many words. Okay? That I'm not important enough because so few people understand this at a mass level that what I'm doing is not going to make that big of a dent in it unless way, way more people start paying attention to what I'm saying. Okay? And getting it at a deep level, and then not just getting it, not just understanding it, but then acting upon it. That's when they'll become concerned. They're not concerned right now, folks. People say, why do they let Passio talk about this? Because they are completely unconcerned with the reach of my voice at this time. That's the reason they'll let me continue to talk and talk endlessly. They're laughing at what I do. Satanists and occultists have told me this. It is a comedy show. This is a comedy show to them. Okay? Because they know how far away from this understanding humanity really is. And, that they know that even out of the potential viewing audience, there are people who are saying, I'm completely wrong and I don't know what I'm talking about, even though I've been on the inside of this power structure and control system. Okay? And I've been on the inside of their religion. And yet there are people who will insist, no, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I know better than you, even though I've never been anywhere near it. Okay? It's like, I liken it to trying to describe what living inside of a city is like, even though you've never been there. And then telling somebody who's lived there their entire life exactly what the city they lived in their entire life is like when you've never even visited it. Okay? And that's where a lot of people are at when it comes to my work. So folks, I don't care what you call either of these cult beliefs. It doesn't make a difference to me because I call it what it really is, slavery. Okay? That's what all politics, that's what all government is. Doesn't matter what kind of government. It's all driven by violence. It's slavery. Okay? We need to stop euphemizing things and calling it what they want us to call it in slave language. Okay, stop using their slave language that they've given to us to use euphemistically and start calling it what it really is. Government is slavery. Okay, I'm going to open and close all the shows with that phrase to hammer it into the human consciousness as much as I can. Government is slavery. Okay, there's another tagline for the show. Get as offended as you like. Government is slavery. Okay, this is what we need to understand at a deep philosophical level. Because when we strip it all away, it's not backed by anything by violence. It's not isn't underlined by deep philosophy or truth or morality. It's underlined by commands of compliance that there are punishments for not complying with, whether those commands happen to be in keeping with real morality or not. Because in one place, they could gauge a behavior as moral, and in another place, they could lock you in a cage for doing the exact same thing, which is the definition of moral relativism. Okay? So I want to show people some charts of political polarization throughout the years and how bad it's gotten. Okay? And to give proper credit here, okay, I do want to show people briefly before I go into this section where I got this data. Okay, because in my presentations, I'm not giving those parameters. Okay, so I just want to do that outside of the presentation slides. I'm going to very briefly switch over to my web browser in a moment. I'll tell you when to switch to that. Yes, you can switch over to that. Okay, and this is a website called Pew Research Center. And it's a political research center for United States politics. So this is particularly specifically dealing with U.S. politics, okay? And this is a page that dealt with the results of their studies in political polarization from the years 1994 through the years 2017. So you can look this up yourself. I just basically, to get to this, typed into any given search engine. I particularly have been using DuckDuckGo lately, which doesn't track you to the extent that other search engines like Google do. And I typed in political polarization charts. That's it. And this was my first result that came back for me. Knowing that I was going to talk about this dynamic, this site gives you some nice visual charts for polarization, and you could choose the year here, and then it will switch and show you how that dynamic of polarization between the two political parties, Democrat and Republican, changed in that time frame. Okay, so and you could also look at politically engaged versus the general public and see how those dynamics differ there as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just switch back to my my presentation, and I'm just going to show people how these this political polarization changed throughout the last couple of decades and how it's grown far worse. Okay, so let me go back into the presentation and continue here. So this is 1994. And again, I'm using the general public. This isn't the politically engaged aspect, just the general public and how they identified in their views as to whether they came down on the left or right side of believing in the political left or the political right, or the Democrat or Republican. The line displays the median, which is the very middle of the bell curve kind of, okay, numbers wise. So in 1994, look at how much overlap there was between the political parties. And the dark blue area is showing where they overlapped in their viewpoints, okay? And then you have that middle line, that was where the average person was. And look at how close to the center it is. Very slightly right of center, meaning the country was a little bit more toward the conservative side of things back in 1994. But in general, there were, obviously extremists on both sides regarding their cult views. But, you have this pretty close central gauge there in the median lines. Okay, so the country was more centrist politically and was not really, we weren't like at war between the two polarized political dynamics. This is what I'm trying to show people, is that things have gotten worse, not better, as you will see as we go forward in these slides. If they were to get better, people would generally, one, stop believing in government altogether, but two, you would see more overlap in the parties because they would generally not be thinking politically polarized things. They would not be able to be divided dialectically. And when you divide a public dialectically, they're ripe for conquer. That's what the whole divide and conquer strategy is all about. Okay, so moving to the year 1999, you see that the median shifted a little bit toward the left. Okay, now we're a little bit maybe slightly left of center, but we have a pretty big mixed viewpoint in the center, where you had a lot of political overlap and not a lot of polarization between the parties back in 99. Okay. So I'm moving to the next slide, which is 2004. Now, you see again, it's still slightly left of center, but lots of overlap. Okay, so we're not even as of, when Bush was still president, okay, we're still seeing a pretty centrist view politically. Now, we're going to see it start to really change here during the Obama administration. Okay, and now we have political polarization happening, where you can see there's less overlap. We're getting more of a median left of center for Democrats and more of a median right of center, and those median lines are separating now. Okay, and that's 2011, and now you're going to see in the last few years how bad it has really gotten, and this is proof. The mind control, the propaganda, okay, the mainstream media polarization of divide and conquer, it's working. It's actually more efficient than it was in the past. Okay, look at 2014. Okay, still Obama president. Okay, but look at how wide that gap has gotten now between the political medians. Okay, and this left-right paradigm is being enforced, and it's growing in the general minds of the general population. Okay, and now they're seeing each other as we're completely separate. We're at war with each other ideologically. Okay, now look at it grows a little bit even more as we go further into the year 2015. And now look at the divide as of less than 2 years ago. And this obviously is the Trump era. Okay, and this is a result of how far politically left the left is going as a reaction to Trump coming in. You don't see a lot of movement with the median Republican, although it has shifted from back in 94 a little bit right of center. But look at the median Democrat. Now, if you put the politically engaged aspects of this chart that I showed you on, it's even worse than this. And there's even less of a mix between the two polarized political parties' worldviews. Okay, so this is proof right here from actual, gathered data from society, how far in the political polarization we have gone, particularly in the Trump era, which is, created this idea of Trump derangement syndrome. And, I don't even know how people can take whoever is president seriously and actually believe that there are people in power and making these decisions. I mean, you have to be a naive child to really believe that the whole political polarization worldview. Okay, it's just there to get people to continue to choose a slave master. That's all it's there for. So what I want to show people is what I call the real political spectrum. I covered this in my earlier podcast format. And this is what I call the political spectrum, or the so-called political spectrum, as a function of consciousness. So this isn't really a political spectrum, okay? It's taking what people consider the political spectrum and graphing it against consciousness and control in society. What we're really gauging here is how much control externally is imposed upon society through violence and coercion of government, okay, versus how much consciousness there is in society, or how enlightened the mass population is. So a mathematical function means there's only going to be one result on the graph in between the two axes. Okay, there can't be two values when we plot points on the chart. Okay, that's the definition of a mathematical function. So you see the line goes up and then it comes back down, and there's never 2 points where there's different values. So the bottom axis has its 0 point in the center. Okay, and I did this deliberately to show how freedom is a precarious position. It's a very narrow straight to tread. Okay, it is like teetering on the point of a pin. Okay, not even the head of a pin, but the point of a pin. Okay, and when we go away from true moral philosophy, it's a very steep slope downward on both sides, whether you come down on the left or the right of the illusory political spectrum. Okay, so Where you have totalitarian rule is on the outsides of that bottom axis, okay? Where it says total external government control based on coercion and violence, or coercion and control, external government based on coercion and control. So you would have totalitarianism in the form of either communism, if you're looking at this from the traditional or established leftist point of view, versus fascism on the far right. Okay, but it doesn't really matter. You can mirror this about the horizontal axis and understand the same thing from the chart. Okay, that there's totalitarian control when there's an unconscious population that does not understand true self-government and that still believes in the traditional political spectrum or believes in the cult called government. So as we go slightly inward toward the 0 point, which represents freedom and no externalized imposition of violence and control through government, we have socialism and what I would call crony capitalism, or what other people would just simply refer to as capitalism, in the left and right side. So you're having slightly more less control, and it's like a mask of totalitarianism. You're just masking the fact that the society is enslaved as you go a little bit further in toward the center of the graph. Then you come to what were traditional republics, kind of like what the United States was originally founded upon, a constitutional republic. And they could be based on the ideas of classical liberalism and minarchism, or classical conservatism, the right-wing form of a limited form of republican government. Okay, republic meaning a government that is the people gets to decide what the powers of the government will be, but it still institutes government. Then as you get closer to the top, you have what would be either slightly left-leaning libertarianism or slightly right-leaning libertarianism, as you get a little bit more conscious, okay? But it's still minarchism. We're still not going all the way to the truth of true anarchy, meaning no imposed rulers, meaning true freedom for all from a spiritual point of view in harmony with natural law, and bringing our behaviors into alignment with the moral laws of creation, meaning that we know what rights are and what they are not. We know what true property is versus what it is not. And we choose willfully through conscience, through the knowledge of the objective difference between right and wrong, to engage in right behavior over wrong behavior. That is what true freedom is. Okay? So this is the real political spectrum, not the false political polarization that we saw in the chart in the former section. Okay? And I think if people study this graph, they'll gain a lot from understanding, how I've set this up to help people to understand where we really need to go in consciousness and what that will create externally in society as a whole. So moving to the next slide, how close are we to that state in the aggregate human condition? Do people understand that that's how these dynamics work and are driven? I would say we are certainly not moving in the direction of knowledge, but we are moving deeper and deeper into the levels of ignorance, and proud ignorance, I might say. There are people who are very comfortable to have their head in the sand and ignoring the reality that we are really living in. And when you bring it up to them, they consider it's such an uncomfortable topic that they don't even want to talk about it. Okay? They don't even want to engage in it at all. They want to be comfortable in their ignorance and live in a bubble. And again, I've said before on the show, to be in this position, to have your head in the sand, you have to have your ass in the air. And then we know what happens next. Okay? Not to be joking about it, but it's a very good little allegorical thing that happens to just be the case. Okay? And this is where most of society is at. Okay? And it's sad. It's very sad. And the reason it's sad, and what I'm going to start to get into here a little bit, is, how I feel about the human condition right now, and where I think why I'm sad, angry, and outraged, and bitter about it. Okay. And it's because it doesn't need to be this way. This is a choice, especially in society today. This is a choice. It's a huge choice. Okay. Because we have the free will to edify ourselves and to come to the understanding of truth. It's all out there. It's all there. The apocalypse has happened, folks. It's all revealed. It's been revealed for many, many years. We lived through apocalyptic times. See, people think apocalypse means destruction. It does not. It comes from the Greek apo, meaning to remove or to take away, and kalyptine, meaning to hide or to conceal, similar to how occultare in Latin means to hide or to conceal. So apocalyptine means to take away the veil, to remove the veil, or to reveal that which has been hidden. It's the revealing of what has been occulted. And that has happened. Past tense, has occurred. We are in post-apocalyptic times. And yet, this is still the human condition, ignoring the truth. When a society as a whole on a planet living in the universe says to truth, go F yourself, I want no part of you, the path that lies ahead is going to be not only a treacherous one, it is going to be what I call the way of maximum pain. And that's where we're headed as a species, folks. And I wish I could tell you differently. I wish I could say that it's some way that is different than that. But there's no indicators that allow me to say with any positivity or confidence that we're heading in the right direction. Because I don't see it around me. And it's not just that I don't see it around me. I don't see it no matter where I go, geographically in the world. I could travel anywhere. And, at little pockets, conferences, tiny little pockets that are trying to get the word out to people they're disparagingly puny, okay? Tiny little pockets of people really get it and understand. But then you have them drowning in the ignorant hordes of humanity everywhere. And I try to gauge the consciousness dynamic from a stepping back and looking at it as it really is, not what I want it to be. Because it's very easy to try to see it from where you want it to be versus where it really is. I try not to go the opposite. I try not to say, I'm going to just look at this from a totally dark, negative perspective. I try to be a realist when it comes to it, based on what I know the requirements are regarding where we have to get in consciousness. And then you could see that gap is just, I can't put my arm high enough to visually display that gap. Can't be done. Okay? The gap is tremendous. And there's no signs of it closing. There's signs of it widening. All right? I don't want it to be like that. I'm not saying that to discourage anybody. I'm trying to accurately tell the viewing audience what our work together is to do. That's my goal here, is to inspire you to get involved in doing what I've been doing for the last 11 going on 12 years of my life. Okay? And maybe if more people really engage their will to do it, we'd make some headway. Maybe. But a lot of people want to just pat people on the back. Oh, pat you on the back. Great job, Mark. Hey, can you help me out? Go F yourself. Can't be bothered. I got my own life to live. Can't be bothered to help you with what you're doing to try to enlighten humanity, help to enlighten humanity. No, I'm going to live my life in the selfish way I want to live it because that's what's comfortable for me. I'll pat you on the back and tell you how well you're doing. I'm not interested in that, folks. Never have been. Not interested. I don't want praise. I don't do this for praise. I don't do this to make friends, obviously. Okay? I'm trying to be real with people, tell them where we're really at, what's coming if we don't turn this around, okay? And get them to be engaged through an act of their understanding and their will. All right? Human beings are still mentally attached to completely false axiomatic premises. Okay? So, this is the condition of humanity. Totally wrapped up in their own minds and their own illusions, totally controlled by the social engineers, all right, continuing to march in a lobotomized state toward total enslavement. And that's not fear-mongering. That's not what people call fear porn. That's an accurate assessment of the human condition based on deep and very thorough analysis of the human condition. And if you don't come to that conclusion, I would say your data set is skewed. It's off. Your perception is skewed and off, and you're not looking at things from a detached, non-emotional, objective point of view if you haven't come to that same conclusion. Again, not saying that to discourage anybody, explaining what are the causal factors that are really leading to humanity to be where it's at and to continue down that path of enslavement. So what is an axiom? This is a word that I've kicked around in the past and never really given people a good definition of, I don't think. So this is where people are stuck in their mind control, okay? This is where they're stuck in their perception, their perceptual capabilities. They have accepted false axioms. An axiom is a fundamental belief that is widely accepted as true because it is perceived to be either self-evident or particularly useful to those who have accepted it. Okay, and this is where we run into trouble. Axioms can be true or they can be false. Okay, if an axiom is true, that means you are basing your higher level mathematics upon the axiom that 1 + 1 = 2 in arithmetic and 2 + 2 = 4 in arithmetic. If you base your fundamental axiom that 1 + 1 = 5 in arithmetic and 2 + 2 = 10 in arithmetic, you are going to run into very high level problems as you go into more advanced mathematics such as algebra or calculus or, doing differential equations or, probability and statistics, etc. Or then into higher level physics. You are not going to have accurate results if your fundamental axioms are based on untruths. And this is what's going on in society. We are basing our fundamental axiomatic belief systems upon things which are not true. And when we build bigger structures and bigger aspects of society based on things that aren't true, what do we get? We get nonsense, we get chaos, we get destruction, we get disorder, we get death. Okay, and that's where we're at as a society, which is eventually going to lead to an imbalance physically in nature and the planet, and we're going to get shrugged off of it like fleas off the back of a dog. And that eventuality will occur at some point if we don't change. And the main fundamental axiom that has to change is the belief in authority. Okay, this is the main underlying fundamental false axiom that comprises a religion and ultimately comprises a cult. The belief or the axiom that it is based upon is the belief in human authority. Authority is an illusion of a diseased psyche, based entirely in violence and built upon the erroneous and dogmatic belief that some people are masters who have the moral right, quote unquote, to rule others, while others are slaves who have a moral obligation, quote unquote, to obey the so-called masters. That is what government actually is. That is what authority is, and government is based entirely upon it. In the meme here, it says, imagine being forced into a religion that you cannot opt out of. It's called government. It exists, and it's called government. And this is what I call the world's most dangerous religion. Larkin Rose wrote a book called The World's Most Dangerous Superstition, which is about this belief in authority. I highly recommend it. I call it the world's most dangerous religion, or simply the world's most dangerous cult, because that's what this is, a cult belief system. And if our axiomatic beliefs are based in a cult belief system that's based in violence and completely based in something that is completely not true and does not actually exist in the inherent realm of nature, which is what is absolutely the truth regarding authority. It is not something that is true or based in the realm of nature. It is a constructural idea that exists in a diseased mind. We are going to build all kinds of things on top of that false belief system that are going to do exactly what we say we do not want to happen in our society, and we are going to get a result that we do not want. That is going to be the polar opposite of what we say we want our society to look like and be like. Moving to the next slide. We don't have people in our society today, folks, that are really deeply trying to do anything about this, okay? We have people who say they want to do things about this, say they want to make it different. I call them the keyboard commandos, the keyboard warriors. They have arrived to fight the Facebook war. They're going to go and get them on Facebook, okay? Instead of actually really creating creative content and putting it out there with your name, your face, your voice on it, okay? And doing it in a way that is visually appealing, that really explains the conceptual ideas in a deep way and helps people to gain an accurate, fundamental understanding of them. No, just go out and shout at people on Facebook. You're not changing anybody's mind. They're not changing yours, okay? All it is a verbal masturbation contest. And that's what most people are doing, thinking that they're going to affect change. let me tell you something, folks. Let me burst your bubble. Let me offend you right here. You're not going to make any change posting anything on Facebook, ever. It's not going to happen. It's not a powerful or effective enough medium. And you have so many people that are so highly ignorant that know no part of this. And you're in too much noise. There's not enough room for the signal to get through. Now, I'm streaming this on Facebook to try to get people to look at my work that I've put up on my website. Okay? That means you leave the internet ghetto city that's been constructed for you. Okay, that is a controlled paradigm. It's a controlled pig pen is what it really is. Okay, and then you go to a palace that someone has constructed to help you to gain, or it's a school. It's an elaborate school that someone has constructed with meticulous craftsmanship and precision. Sorry to toot my own horn a little bit there, folks, but I think I've done a job that is far better than almost just about everybody else in gaining. Helping people to gain a full worldview understanding of what's really taking place, okay, through whatonearthishappening.com. I see very few websites that are anything like it whatsoever, okay, and I see far too few people trying to do something that is akin to what I've done with this website, okay, which is put out creative, individual, tailored content for a viewing and listening audience to really truly edify themselves and come to an accurate understanding of the dynamics that are taking place in our world. And that's why it's called What on Earth is Happening without a question mark. Okay? So the Facebook keyboard commandos, you're not going to make that much progress. And this is what it makes me feel like. You know, it makes me feel like, my God, we're doomed. You know, and then people will, like, you know, get angry at me and be like, you know, I hope Mark isn't going to be super harsh toward people, you know, but you have to put yourself in my shoes, right? You have to imagine you're doing this for 12 years now. And not only aren't you seeing it change, but you're seeing it get worse, as I've just proven to you. Not my perception or my just belief. I've just proven to you that the political polarization is worse than it ever has been, okay? That ignorance is at an all-time high, okay? The war between men and women is at an all-time high. Okay, absolutely ridiculous radical neo-feminism is rampant, okay, which is driving that war between the sexes even further into the ground, okay, and you know, people are still so super identified with their political beliefs, they don't even understand that the entire system is slavery. You know, we were making a lot more headway back in 2004, 5, and 6, as far as I'm concerned, before I even started doing this. So you have to understand my bitterness comes from a realistic perspective, okay? It's not just me wanting to shout at people, okay? It's me looking at the dynamics of human consciousness from an honest and detached perspective and being horrified by it. Horrified by it. And then looking at what I've chosen to dedicate my life to doing, okay? And we're going to get to your calls, folks. I'm going to wrap up soon, okay? But I think this is very important. And then we'll go to your calls on Discord. You have to understand, basically giving up just about every other aspect of your life, what you wanted to do, travel, where I wanted to go, places I wanted to see, activities I wanted to engage in, all had to be put to the wayside to do this, you know? And this is what I do full time now. You know, I don't have another job, okay? Any income that I have to make to live, you know, and it's not income, it's just generous donations by people who want to help me to do this work and still live in the 3D world, okay? That's the only place that I bring in those resources. So that's why I want to tell people, if you can, please donate at whatonearthishappening.com/donate, okay? Because, you know, the paltry amount of money that I make compared to the IT career that I gave up to do this it's a negligible thing. It's like a third, less than a third, okay, of what I used to make at my regular, quote, job, okay? This is the true great work, but that's how much it's valued. You have to understand, that's how much it's valued compared to an employer, what they will actually pay me to go and do services for them. What doing the great work is valued, you know, compared to what a football player, how he's valued, or a baseball player, how he is valued to play like a child's game, okay? This is worth barely anything to people in the aggregate, which is why, you know, the people who have contributed, I hold them at a dear place in my heart and thank them from the bottom of my heart for helping, because you're helping me to be able to do this, on a regular basis. And, the people who donated equipment to make this happen, I really want to especially thank you, because, this is about being technologically literate and being able to reach out to people with this knowledge. And you know who you are, okay? And you know that I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So going back to, what I'm talking about in the presentation here, people will hear the bitterness, and I'll tell them I'm bitter over this. Because I approach it from that initiatory perspective. I'm just going to be honest with you. Okay. I don't feel like being dishonest with people serves them any purpose. It doesn't do anything for any kind of a accurate communication of information, nor does it inspire trust, which is why I'm coming here. I'm dressing like I do on an everyday basis. I'm talking to you with my regular voice. I'm going to get angry at times. I'm going to yell at times. Okay. I'm going to be bitter at times. And I'm being who I am. That's it. I'm doing this from where I am. Okay. That's honesty. Okay. So just wanted to say that. I want to wrap up this with helping people to understand one of the ways that we really can get out of this condition of slavery, and that's by developing true relationships with each other. And it's something that I really haven't talked much about, the relationship dynamic between human beings. And I'm going to really make the show a little bit more about this, hopefully in the future, because it is about how you can really make a connection between other people. But we have this view of relationship. It's all askew in our understanding. It's very inaccurate of what we think a relationship is, okay? And this is what people think a relationship is. It's like this one-on-one, direct, close connection between two individuals. And I call this relationship in double quotes, okay? This is what I would consider an illusory relationship. It's a nice image. It can convey some, spiritual connection maybe between people, but there's something absent or missing as far as I am concerned. Okay. And in the next slide, I want to show you what I feel is missing when we look at a relationship as only this dynamic between two people. Okay. So when we go to the next slide, I feel like this connection to source or truth is largely absent, especially in what the average human being in the world today considers a relationship between two people. There has to be this unity that is connecting them like a circuit, and that is truth. Okay, we have to care for truth and we have to live truth in our personal lives and in society. Okay, if that connection to truth isn't made first, the relationship between the two individuals is ultimately a false one, or it is ultimately a weak one that is not going to sustain. Okay, and that's what we have in society. We have this connection is largely absent, and we have people trying to establish just interpersonal connections and relationships that don't have this connection to truth first and foremost as their underlying first principles. Okay? We have to make the connection to those underlying first principles first. And here's a better way to look at it. I did a little animation. It's kind of crude, okay? But, this is what I consider a genuine relationship between two individuals, okay, when we have this connection to truth. And I wanted to portray it even better because there's not really two, separate connections. We're all making a connection to the same thing. So I made a little crude animation here that goes like this. We could leave that full screen while I do it. And there's what it really looks like. There's only really that one source of all, and there's only that one ultimate connection to truth that everybody needs to make. And then we can, connect to everybody else in society through that connection to truth. And that's what I consider a true, genuine relationship to be. And this is the first time I kind of visually displayed this and talked about it at a deep level like that. I see this as one of the fundamental solutions in society for how we really relate to people. And you know where you have to start with that? You have to start with being honest to yourself. Being honest with yourself. When you can be honest with yourself and make that connection to truth, then you're in a position to make a genuine relationship with others. And that's what's going to help heal our society and move us toward a future that is based in true human freedom together. And that is the world that is in our hands. That is exactly the world that is in our hands as we speak. It is up to us. Nobody's coming to save us from our own ignorance. Nobody's come to save us from our apathy, from our inaction. Okay? We have to do it because the whole idea here is, what are we doing this for? Right? Are we just doing it for ourselves? Are we doing it for humanity? And I feel like the answer is neither of those things. We have to do this for truth itself. That's what I consider myself, a servant of truth. I'm not a servant of humanity. Okay? Humanity may benefit from the knowledge that I can help to convey, but ultimately, who am I the servant of? I'm the servant of the truth itself, that higher source itself. Okay? And when we all make that connection, then we take the world into our own hands and we move it forward by an act of our will, and we will take it to a positive and empowering place. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what the true great work really is. That is what the one great work, the true great work, really is. And hence, that is the symbolism of the all-seeing eye, the awakened consciousness, that has gotten this bad rap and a bad explanation of what that symbology really means on the pyramid and all-seeing eye on the back of the dollar bill. As I've broken down before, the true meaning of that is awakened consciousness and a deep connection to the source, to truth, to the creator. And that is what it is all ultimately for: truth, love, and freedom. So with that, that concludes the presentation slides for today's show and the topic for today's show. And we can go back to the main interface. Thank you. And let's go to some callers. Let's take some calls on Discord. Now, this is the first time we're doing this, so if there's technical issues, please bear with us. I think it's going to go smoothly, though. I have to put another headset on to take calls, okay? Because of the way things are technologically set up here, which shouldn't be an issue. And now, when I do this, I want to, first of all, let people know how this works, okay? So let me get to the Discord room real quick, okay? Wow, there are a lot of people in here. I'm very surprised and pleasantly surprised, okay? So what I want to let people know is when I call on you, there's no screening. You'll be live, okay? And I don't know who got here first. I'm not watching the room as we go. And unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, there is no way to put the callers in the order that they entered the room. They always appear in alphabetical order. So what I'm going to try to do to make it somewhat fair is to skip around a little bit, okay? And I apologize if you don't make it in, okay? It's just, it's going to be what it is. You could try again whenever you feel like at a future show. But let's just try to keep a flow going, and I'm sure we're going to have some great calls. So, let's go to, you should have your mic unmuted, because I can mute everybody from the server end so that only one person at a time will be able to be heard, okay? So if you're going to want to speak, you want to unmute your microphone, and then I will unmute you from the server end. So let's go to Bruno Cardoso. Bruno Cardoso, you are live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome to the show. What do you have for us today? You want to unmute your microphone. Bruno Cardoso, you are live on What on Earth is Happening. Are you there? You need to unmute your mic. Okay. I'm not able to hear your audio, so let's... I see Ivan from Phoenix is in the room, so I'm going to go to Ivan. Ivan from Phoenix, welcome to the show. You're our first caller on the new What on Earth is Happening video show. Ivan. All right, we're having a technical problem with calls. I'm unable to hear Ivan. Give me a moment. If anybody can let me know if they can hear me in the Discord room, that would be great.
I can hear you.
I'm looking at the settings for the room.
Hear you.
Yeah. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties with being able to take calls in the room. For everybody, there's a little mute icon on the bottom, okay? So if you could just unmute. Ivan, you're still unmuted from the server end, but I'm still not able to hear you. Let's see if we can go to someone else. Let's go to Khaled. Khaled, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Are you there? No, I'm still not able to hear him. Well, folks, what we might have to do is just go back to more content, and I'll just keep going, and we'll work out the issues with the call. How about I'm going to quit Discord. I'm going to quit my copy of Discord and try to get back to it and check my audio settings real quickly. Maybe unplug and replug my headset. And I do apologize for this. We tested this before the show, and it was working. So bear with me. We'll just try a couple of things here very quickly. Take a second. I think my voice is still coming out over the main microphone, so I'll just try to, there we go. I think I found the problem, folks. I believe I have found the issue, and looks like it was a setting. Let me reopen Discord, and I think we'll be okay. All right, I'm coming back into the room now. People should in the room be able to hear me now if everything went smoothly with that. And let's go back to Ivan from Phoenix. Ivan, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
There we have you. Okay. Sorry about that. I knew there would be some glitches and hiccups in the first episode probably. We will work all of this stuff out and make sure that it is definitely working more smoothly. So, Ivan, welcome to the show. It's been a while since I spoke with you on the airwaves. We did do that interview to let people be aware of, what I was trying to do on Guy Next Door Speaks. You were one of the people who really helped me get the help that I need to do this new format. So I want to thank you personally for giving me that platform. And now you're on the What on Earth is Happening platform to share whatever you have or to ask any questions you'd like.
Oh, well, yeah, that was almost a year ago now with all that interview for the conference, having you out here and everything. So, yeah, just doing my part. And like you always say, everything, many hands make light work. So I'm glad to have done my little part to help bring this into fruition.
Let me tell you something. That conference that you hosted outside of Phoenix was one of the better conferences that I've ever attended and spoke at. Ivan put together the Truth Mind Reality Conference, and he did it all himself with help of local volunteers in his area that also did a phenomenal job in the organization of it. And I just want to say that's what the great work is all about. It's about getting your hands actually in and doing something by way of your own effort. And this man right here is no better example of that. So Ivan, I want to thank you for, actually engaging in the great work to change human consciousness. And people can take example from what Ivan here has done.
Well, thanks for that, Mark. And,
Sure.
listening to your show today, I feel like you feel like, yeah, we've done quite a lot, and yet it feels like not much has been done, where things are still going backwards, So yeah, it is a matter of many hands, getting in there. Like,
Sure.
I had to bust my butt, for quite a few months to generate the funds to pay for the conference myself. I didn't want any outside, influences and anything. But look at all that work it took for me just to put a one-day event. See, so that's part of the problem, is all these mechanisms out there to get this going. It has its, like you called it, money is the resistance in the system. So in order for us to get the truth out there, it takes all this money, because we got to pay for technology, we got to pay for rooms and lodging and all this stuff. Whereas the controllers, they're pulling this money out of their rear ends like nothing. Right. And so the mind control is easy for them to put out there. For the common regular people like us to put out the truth, it takes so much. Look at your work. It took you over a year or so to get this going, just to be on for 3 hours on a Sunday. So, that's again part of looking at reality, the world of, really how it is. And yet people want to condone all the capitalism and money and, it's not a problem. Well, it's part of the tools that's keeping the rest of us enslaved.
Without a doubt, that's a big part of it. And, what it really comes down to is how much do people want to put their own resources behind something that is really trying to inspire and create change. if they're not doing it themselves, you know what I mean? So I say, like, if you don't want to do it yourself, at least help those who are doing it. Be a support system for those people who are doing this type of work. You know, if you don't want to do that, get in there and do something yourself. Don't complain about what other people are doing. Another dynamic I want to speak to about what you said briefly is, how little change we have really seen. Okay, even doing this for this long. But that is also part of what I want to say that won't necessarily just make people, despondent about that is when you are trying to change the direction of a physical item in the world that is already moving in a certain direction, there's the law of inertia, that objects in motion tend to remain in the same type of motion that they're already moving in unless they're acted upon by a force. Okay, so but when you act upon them by whatever force you're going to use to try to change their direction, it's always the hardest at the very beginning to try to change the momentum of that object. You have to exert the most force in the initial step. Then when you finally get it moving in the other direction, less force is required to keep it moving in that direction because again, the law of inertia is working with you as you do it in that direction. So that we may be at that point where this incredible amount of effort and force is going to be required at the initial stages, and as more and more people get involved in the work, as I've said and as you have said, many hands will make for light work. And that's what we are calling for here. We are calling for more people to get involved. This isn't just about what you know. This is about what you do with what you know. It's about taking real world action to create real world change. That's what real care is, caring enough to do that. And perhaps sacrificing what you wanted to do, perhaps sacrificing resources that you wanted to put elsewhere. I mean, I think about this all the time, how much time I've spent on this that I could have been doing other things that I wanted. I like playing music. I like creating art. I sacrificed a lot of that. I wanted to travel to different places. I sacrificed a lot of that to do this work. It's like we only have a limited amount of time, resources, places that we could put our attention. And I try to focus myself on doing this kind of work and getting the message out there to the people in a way that is readily understandable. And I just want to say again, thank you to the people that made this new format possible, because I'm really loving how it has been kicked off. I love the response, how many people seem to be interested and wanting to get involved. So Ivan, thank you really so much for what you have done, and thank you so much for the call today. Really great to speak with you again, my friend. Let's move on to another caller. I'm going to try once again Bruno Cardoso. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Are you there, sir? Doesn't look like it. Let's try Khaled. Khaled, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome. People seem to be having problems with their audio for some reason. I know that we're definitely live again, so let's go to German Nicholas, I believe, if I'm saying it correctly. Let's go to German Nicholas. You're live. What do you have for us? All right.
Hello?
There he goes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. It appears that people are maybe possibly not unmuting themselves from the bottom left-hand corner of Discord, right next to your name on the list underneath where it says What on Earth is Happening, where you see the list of people in the call-in room. You first have to click the call-in room, and then underneath that, where you see your handle, your name that you use for Discord, there will be a microphone that will have a slash through it. Okay? What you guys want to do is unmute all of your microphones, and when they are unmuted, that means that I can then unserver mute you, because everybody is automatically muted from the server level, so that only who I unmute from the server level can actually then speak in the room and be heard on the air. So please make sure that your own mics are unmuted so that when I call upon you, you're ready to go with your own microphone audio. Thank you. So yes, German Nicholas, what do you have for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, pretty much. It's Germanicus. It's kind of like a hybrid of Nicholas and German.
Okay.
Uh, but
And
anyway,
again,
Mark.
people are allowed to use their own internet handles or aliases on this, so they could pretty much remain anonymous. I'll basically do my best in calling them as closely as possible to their handle name. So just to let people know, I'm doing pretty well. I'm very happy about how the new show format has been launched and is going. Little bit of a hiccup there at the beginning of taking the calls, but it's to be expected. We're working with some technology that requires a little bit of setting up and polishing, if you will. So, but other than that, great.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the new format. And actually, this is my first time with Discord. I got it just for this show.
It's sounding pretty good as far as I can tell. I hope it's going out over the internet stream clearly, but in my headset at least, I think the voice sounds fantastic. So what do you have for us regarding any comments or questions or anything that you'd like to bring up regarding what's taking place?
Well, would you like to hear some predictions
Sure.
or? Okay. I mean, I agree with you in the state of things that it's pretty it's pretty dire. Things are not improving. Um, it's on the decline. You see the political turmoil in the states, and it's obviously echoing across to Europe, to Canada, to Australia, New Zealand, because obviously in the Anglosphere, it's all centralized and connected, so it's top down, right?
I agree.
Um, but what's very depressing is as much as people are waking up, they're not. They're still like far off. It's almost like two steps, or no, one step forward, two steps back, so to
Right.
speak.
Yeah, I
And
agree, and that comes from that knowledge gap. They don't have full knowledge. In other words, like they're starting to try to process the world, right? When they don't have all the building blocks of knowledge that they need for that processing. It's like not having a big enough data set to put through the computer processor to really understand any aspect of what that data set is telling us. So that they're putting the processing and the rhetoric, the behavior before the knowledge gathering. And in the trivium process, the knowledge gathering has to be full. You have to do that in its fullness. Okay. And that's where that disconnect, I believe, is coming in at. So continue.
well, what's very concerning is a lot of these people are waking up to the decay of liberalism. It's definitely starting to set in and become very obvious. And what I'm seeing though is this revival of people going back to Christianity and going back into the church, and it's like running right back into the arms of the Luciferians, right?
Well, there's definitely certain resurgent pockets of resurgence of religious thought from the traditional, what I call the cultural religions, and that is because you see people that don't have a accurate enough framework and knowledge. Once again, that they will go to religious thought because they think, well, the world's being taken over by evil, and running to a savior ideology is what's ultimately going to help us achieve some type of redemption. And again, I consider myself what you might call an esoteric Christian, but certainly not one from an exoteric point of view. So I look at the golden rule, the teachings of original Christianity from a deep perspective, and look at, like, yes, this is perhaps it's the best way that we should be living in relationship with each other, and from a point of view of don't cause harm to others, treat others as you would prefer to be treated yourself. If you don't want your own rights to be violated or your own self to be harmed, don't do that to other people. That is an esoteric Christian perspective, but I don't buy into the trappings of organized religion. So I don't see any religion as the solution, but many people who think in a very unidimensional way or cannot think in terms of true causal factors and true, hidden knowledge of how things really work, will run to religion as sort of a blanket of protection or a crutch. And it's very easy to do when things get really bad. They go to that perspective, that religious perspective. And I agree. We are seeing a lot of that, particularly from the Christian point of view. Now, again, I think that Christians, if they really deeply look at the works of true Christianity as opposed to what I call fake-ass Christianity, the obfuscation of the genuine Christian ideals and principles, they will be able to apply those effectively in the world. But if they are looking at it from the church perspective and point of view, it's not going to be any kind of a solution. And unfortunately, that's where too many people are at.
Well, I find that they're not going back far enough. They go back maybe 50 years tops, right? Maybe 100. And they don't go back to the, I guess you would say the pre-pagan era, where obviously the cult essentially is, right? It's essentially all the persecuted pagans that were, massacred from this planet, and they've sequestered the universal truths that existed in all those cultures, and now they have it as free range with it. There's no like even though we're still like we're in a predominantly liberal culture that's kind of like looks at Christianity as old or outdated, and there's a lot of hatred towards it. They still use Christian nomenclatures to describe what essentially is psychology or basically psychology. Because what would you call paganism? Because I hate that word because it almost has a negative. No, it does, right? It's like heathen, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say these are beliefs that came out of a drive to understand the natural world in the ancient past. And they eventually became what were called the cults of the ancient world, particularly the astrotheological cults of the ancient world, namely the stellar cult, the lunar cult, and the solar cult, which then morphed into becoming the three major world religions, which I call the desert sky god religions, because we're really talking about astronomical objects in the heavens. You have the stars, which are the stars and planets, the smaller lights of the heavens, and that became the stellar cult. Eventually morphed into Judaism, and the symbol for Judaism is a star. Okay, and then you had the lunar cult, which was of course dedicated to the moon. Okay, that morphed into the Muslim religion. Okay, it morphed into Islam. Okay, and that the symbol of Islam is the moon. And then, of course, you had the solar cult morph into the Christian religion. The main symbol is the Son of God on the cross of the zodiac, in which the sun travels during the course of the year. So I've described all of these religious aspects in earlier aspects of What on Earth is Happening in earlier episodes. People can go back and check out my work on astrotheology as a basis for religion. That's where I think most of paganism came out of. And I think that, we have to take religion for what it is. It is a esoteric watering down, regardless of what the religion happens to be, of principles of truth. To try to make them a little bit more palatable and or digestible to the masses of humanity. But when we do that, we take core first principles away and make them diluted and harder for humanity to understand, because we're thinking like they can't get the undiluted pure message. We have to water it down for their simple minds to understand. Treating people like that and expecting that to work to really elevate consciousness is a pipe dream. Okay, which is why we have to go right for the heart and soul of first moral principles that are supposed to underlie, ostensibly, are supposed to underlie all religious traditions. So, Germanicus, I want to thank you for the questions and comments, very on point. And again, I would highly recommend going to my work on astrotheology and many other researchers work on astrotheology, such as Manly P. Hall and Jordan Maxwell and Michael Tessarion, to go even deeper into that topic and to understand the origins of religion. So let's go to Jonathan Overbay. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome. Try to make sure your mic is unmuted down at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to move on. If I don't hear you respond, I'm going to move on. So let's try my buddy Karma Tinfoil. Welcome.
Hello, how are you, sir?
I'm not bad.
I'm glad you can hear me okay.
Good to hear you. This is Kevin. He used to have a podcast as well that I appeared on. And it's been a while since we've spoken, so good to hear your voice.
Yeah, thank you. It's strange as it is. It's been about 3 years since you've been doing your show, and 3 years that I was living up in like the Lehigh Valley region. Right. And believe it or not, I'm actually down in this area now, once again in Philly. So as synchronicity would have it, your show is starting again. So I couldn't help but make sure that I was here for the first one and to call in and say hi and wish you luck on your new journey. Restarting here, and I'll be doing pretty much the same thing in my own rights.
Fantastic.
My son, Max, he's actually a couple things down from me. He's Large Mac on there. Hello. So he wants to speak to you as well. But I could even just hand over the headset to him if you'd like me to, so that he can speak with you also.
Sure. After you go with your question or comment, you could put him on. Sure.
Well, I guess my closest thing that I'd really like to pick your brain about is the Yellow Jackets over in France, as to what you think of their situation and how things are going.
Well, I kind of almost look at them as very similar to the Occupy movement that was started in New York City, where they have somewhat of an understanding of some of the manifested problems. But again, when you delve a little bit deeper into the mindset that underlies the movement, it lacks deep knowledge of causal factors. And, when you really, if you are really to penetrate into talking with them about like what they know about what's really going on behind the ostensible people in positions of power, they don't know a lot about it. They don't know a lot about the occult. They certainly don't know a lot about deep human psychology or occult psychology. And when you get down to it, it's still that same factor that there is a disconnect between gathering the knowledge correctly first and then accurately processing it to come to a true understanding of what it means, and doing that before actually acting. Okay, and they're taking this into the realm of action before they have that deep knowledge base built under their feet. And when we do that long term, we may see a little bit of results short term and get some news coverage, etc. But it's not going to change anything in the long term. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a psyop, just like I wouldn't say Occupy was necessarily a psyop, but it's a movement that can easily be misguided and directed where the social engineers want it to go, because it's comprised of people that don't have a deep enough level of awareness and knowledge and consciousness and the occult, and so they can ultimately be basically moved as pawns on the chessboard as the chess masters see fit. I know some people will agree with that. There are others who will take exception to that analysis. That's my take on it, and I don't see any indication. When I see indication of a real movement of knowledge, okay, that really deeply understands first principles of morality, okay, and self-defense, moving to end the violence that we call government, I'll be the first person to tell you that's a genuine movement. There is no such thing in the world. It doesn't exist. There are pockets of true anarchists that exist in paltry few numbers that are trying to get the word out about the true moral philosophy of real freedom and real anarchy. And they are scattered to the four winds of the earth. And those who actually do a good job conveying that knowledge are even fewer. So I don't have a very positive take on how many people have that deep level of knowledge and the deep commitment to convey it and get other people to really deeply understand it. But I'm going to keep plugging away, and doing what I can. Because again, I do this for truth's sake, not necessarily just for me or other people. I try to take the human equation almost out of it, and I do this for much, much deeper spiritual reasons. And that's why I'll be here doing this, in this lifetime. And if I come back here, if reincarnation is a true thing and I'm back here on Earth, I'm coming back over and over and over again until slavery's ended on this MFer. Okay? You're not going to get rid of me. Yeah,
much
exactly.
Like the story of the Bodhisattva, like the party's in Nirvana, but we got to get everybody else in there, or it's not going to be much fun.
That's right. What's the point of going to some space of bliss if slavery's still happening here? That means you're just ignoring, all the harm and violence that's being done here and not trying to do anything about it as long as you're okay. This is the problem that we have right down here on the earth. People saying, as long as I'm good, I don't really care what happens to all these other people if they lose their freedom. And meanwhile, what is done to one is done to all. As one loses their freedom, all lose their freedom. So
that's awesome, Mark. Thank you very much.
Again, great to hear from you. Glad that you're doing pretty well, and good to hear your voice again. So if you want to put your son on for him to ask his question or make his comment, I'll take him.
If he just trans.
No, let me just give you the headphone, and then you can use this. Go ahead. Okay, quick. There you go. Hello?
Hey, how you doing?
Very good. How are you?
I'm well. Yeah, just relax, take your time, and make your comment or question. It's all okay. You're talking to a friend.
Yeah. Well, what I would like to talk to you about is what's been recently going on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, it's a very popular topic, but it's important nonetheless. And I think that ever since the big old W, Sujin Wasicki, became the CEO of YouTube, it's been like a complete downward spiral. I mean, YouTube used to be a place where you could have free expression of mind, and you could broadcast yourself. You could become popular out of nowhere. I mean, Fred used to be there was a YouTuber named Fred. He used to be small. Then he got his own movie. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, people are just the smaller little people that are they're trying their damnedest to get onto the bigger enterprise, are just being just shunned at for basically no reason. I mean, I'm pretty sure you haven't heard about Monkey Jones. His channel got taken down for basically no reason at all.
Right.
Because
I think I basically get the gist of what you are saying regarding what's taking place on YouTube, and I fully agree with your assessment that the company has gone way downhill because of the authoritarian control measures that are enacted by Google, really, okay, who owns it. YouTube is a subsidiary of Google now. And basically, what you're seeing is a centralized form of control being enacted on this video sharing platform. And my advice would be not to put all of your eggs in that basket. So in other words, we are live streaming, simulcasting on YouTube, okay? But that's not going to be the only platform for delivery here, okay? We're gonna spread this through all different types of video sharing sites. And one of the other things is I think people have to take charge of their own media and not put it on other people's platforms, right? If you're going to put it on other people's platforms, distribute it, right? We need distributed information sharing, right? So if it gets hit on one platform and taken down, that's not the be all and end all of it, and it's out in 5-6 other places, okay? So what I'm going to do with this podcast, actually this is kind of a good segue. Your question and comment regarding YouTube is a good segue for how I'm going to share this podcast, okay? And it may take a day or two. We'll be working on it over the next couple days. But it's not only going to be uploaded in its full resolution to YouTube, it's going to be uploaded in its full resolution to Vimeo. It will be uploaded in its full resolution to BitChute. It will go up to DTube and therefore connected with and uploaded to Steemit. Okay, and we're going to also put it on Brighteon, which used to be Real Video. So right off the bat, it's going to be shared on like 6 different media platforms, okay, and Facebook, okay, and my own website. So that's like 8 different sites that you will be able to find the show's vidcasts, okay, you know, podcast, vidcast, whatever you want to call it. And what that's going to make possible is it's going to make it very difficult for anybody just to attack what on earth is happening in one place and get it knocked, off the internet airwaves, so to speak. It will be shareable from many different places. I always recommend to people, though, my best advice to you is really try to understand how to make your own content-driven site. That is the best way you can get out there and promote your own views and material without being dependent on someone else. The idea here is independence. Okay, we want, to get away from total dependence on these tech giants that we already know are censorship engines. They're data gathering and collection engines for the public, and they're censorship engines. Okay, they want all of the knowledge there that they can control. Okay, and if they don't like, again, it's like I described it as you're saying, please give me a canvas so that I can paint what I want on the canvas and show it to other people. And they say, okay, here's the canvas, but as soon as you paint one thing on there that we don't like, we're pulling the canvas away from you. You're not painting anything and certainly not showing it to anybody. The first thing is that where you want to be? Is that who you want to be dependent on, right? So the first thing is we have to stop seeing these big video platforms like YouTube or big social media platforms like Facebook as this is our only way of getting this data out there, okay? That's dependency. We have to stop propping them up on pedestals, okay? I'm saying this while I'm broadcasting on these platforms. If you think I care whether they censor me or knock my channel off, I could care less. You're not going to slow me down or stop me no matter what you do. I will have it up in 8 different other video platforms and sharing and getting it out to just as many people, okay? The whole point is, even as they do this censorship, they're showing their desperation in trying to make this information not spread as rapidly as it could or should. So they're showing that they have no argument against it, that all they want to do is censor so that people can't learn it, right? And as soon as you do that, you're showing to people that you have nothing better as far as an argument based on principles at all. Okay, so you're showing that you're morally bankrupt, and you're showing that all you can do is gnash your teeth and pound your fists on the desk and say, I have to silence your voice because my argument is crap, and you might reach other people with this good one, with this good argument, and that might change the world for the better, and then out goes our control and profit. Okay, so first of all, my first piece of advice is stop looking at these guys as like they're the be all and end all. They're not. They don't have as much influence and power as we think that they do. We're giving them that by continuing to use them exclusively. So stop using them exclusively and put your content in multiple places. 2, the second piece of advice, the best way to get information out to the general public is 1, first, have the information very deeply in your own mind studied. Okay, get all your grammar together. Okay, second, have your own platform. Okay, why have I been doing the work that I've been doing on whatonearthishappening.com, my own domain? Why? Why would I not put all my eggs in the YouTube basket and only ever do YouTube video or upload my audio to YouTube and only keep it there? You want to know why? Because I realize that's not mine. That's somebody else's platform that they are allowing me to use. Okay. Now, I don't believe, that doesn't mean I believe censorship is morally right. Okay, because that's what it is. You're telling people this is a venue, like a public forum for freedom of speech and freedom of expression. But then when you say something they don't like you saying because it conflicts with their bullshit political paradigm, okay, then suddenly they want to silence your voice. Okay, that's censorship. Having your own forum for expression, like What on Earth is Happening, means you control what content gets put there and you could post freely there. That means you either use some free hosting service, or maybe you pay a little bit of money to get a website hosted. You understand content management systems. You just look into that term, okay? Content management system. All right. And there's tons of them to choose from. What this is this enables you to put a database on your website and free software that runs with some sort of a scripting language, usually PHP. Okay. And what you're doing through that content management system is you're able to post a blog, articles, videos, etc. Okay. And then you control the content. You could decide to have a forum there with other people to post comments or not. Personally, I don't like that because I think it dilutes my message when people with an inaccurate understanding or an incomplete understanding come in and just go blah, blah, blah and spout nonsense all over. I want my message to be received as undiluted as possible. Okay. But that's why I do things like this, like have a call in. Because I want some feedback from people and to see where their consciousness is at, who's getting it, etc. Okay. The best way you can do this is learn how to actually publish content on the internet for yourself. Okay. This is what the young people of the world really need to do. Okay. Stop using all these, just see part of what they've done. And I'm sorry, I neglected to remember your name, Kevin's son. Okay. Part of what they've done, they've taken the true computing horsepower out of the individual's hands by dissuading people from using powerful personal computers that you have to spend a little bit more money to acquire, okay? And they've told you that this device here, the cell phone, is the be-all and end-all of how you want to communicate with the world. And I'm telling you, this is the biggest poison pill that has ever been introduced to human society right here. Do I have one? There's one in my hand. This is my cell phone. I have one. Okay. Do I use this to create one aspect of any of my content? You'd have to be joking if you think this is a creative tool for me. Okay. I sit down at a powerful desktop computer, which is how real creative content is made. I don't bother with phones, tablets, or anything else. I have a tablet sitting here in front of me that's like a 2-in-1 tablet. You know what I use it for? My show notes, to look at a brief outline of what I want to talk about and keep myself on point during the show. And that's what it's for. And I also use it as a teleprompter screen, okay? If I do a video where I need some teleprompting, for example, my upcoming natural law seminar, which I'm going to talk about next week. My upcoming natural law documentary, a full-length feature documentary, which I'll be talking a little bit about next week. But anyway, that's pretty much the extent I use this tablet for, right? Okay, I'm delivering my slides on a powerful laptop, okay, that is designed for the purpose of creating media and delivering media, right? We need to get away from the thought that this is going to help us change the world. This is a consumer device. Tablets are consumer device. They're specifically designed so that you're not actually creating actual content-driven data on this. You're taking it in and consuming it from people who are creating that content. Okay, we need to get away from thinking, here's how we're going to change the world. I'm going to point this at me. I'm going to hit YouTube Live. Nobody's going to change the world like that. You have to have a structured place for content creation and delivery. And the only way, the most effective way, it's not the only way, but the most effective way of doing that is learning how the web really works. Okay? It's learning a little bit about databases, because that's where your content is coming from, a database. It's a database-driven website. And learning a little bit about content management and delivery systems. Okay? So there's tons of content managers. You can learn WordPress. It's pretty easy and introductory. You want to take a step up from there, learn Joomla. You want to take a step up from there and learn like an enterprise-level content manager that can interact with like even heavier weight databases. Then you learn Drupal or something akin to that. All right. So there's many, many more. There's e-commerce content management systems like Magneto or CubeCart or other ones. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to research open source software for the web and specifically content management systems, right? And you could start learning how to build your own website. And this is what I encourage people to do. Drop the keyboard and Facebook commando rap, okay, and YouTube warrior, and get your own site where you can effectively deliver your own message and your own content. That's the number one thing that I recommend to people who are interested in putting the truth out. Stop depending on these big tech giants' nonsense because they're control freak, authoritarian, totalitarians, okay? And largely they're communists, okay? They're Nazis and communists on these platforms, okay? And I mean that from a real deep-seated religious cult point of view is what they are, okay? So we need to drop our dependency on those platforms and really try to deliver our own content through our own mediums. And that's what the web was supposed to be. The web was supposed to be an eclectic, idea tank, so to speak, where we can go to all these different websites and get a whole bunch of different perspectives. That's what they've tried to shut down, and are continuing to do. Learn content management systems, publish your own content, make your own website. That's my best advice to anybody who wants to have their voice out on the airwaves. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Patty Lager. Patty, another old friend. Welcome to What on Earth is Happening. What do you have for us today? Okay, make sure your mic is unmuted at the bottom. Patty, are you there? Also, people should be aware that it's possible that their microphones are in use by another program, possibly. That is a potential with Discord. So I'll try to come back to you if there's time. Let's go to Occult Fan. Occult Fan, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for calling on me here. You might remember me. We met at Free Your Mind 3 in Pennsylvania. I helped you carry your gear after your talk there.
I believe so. Generally, vaguely, I remember that happening. Unfortunately, I don't remember your name, but that's okay.
It was a shot in the dark, but okay. It's good to hear you. I'm glad that you're back.
Thank
I'd
you.
like to quickly start with a quote here from the Buddha, since the Bodhisattva was mentioned. It says, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment."
Beautiful.
I figured you'd appreciate that, given that was one of the 5 occult initiations that you talked about.
That's right.
I'm going to keep this really quick. I actually have some notes that I've written down. And off the top, I want to give a shout out to Richard Groves' autonomy class that he's running. I think that people would really appreciate that.
I like Groves' material a lot. Absolutely.
He's the reason I found out about you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so let me get my question out quickly because I know you have a few more people you'll probably want to get to. Time's running down.
Sure.
So yeah, basically, so let's see. I want to thank you for your courage and doing the great work here. My question for you, you've spoken about having a full picture, like you used the Sun Tzu quote, and it's very obvious that acausal events occur, just like tinfoil karma there, or whatever karma tinfoil mentioned. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, what is synchronicity?
Sure.
So I'm wondering if you could speak to the importance of synchronicity in working for freedom, as well as the importance of recognizing thought forms, egregores, in addition, higher dimensional entities. To finish the idea,
whole shows could be done on just one of those topics, but
countless societies have talked about them, and
sure.
like Tool in the song Fayap De Awad. So do you feel that there's a need to comprehend this level of existence in order to master this realm, in order for freedom to occur?
I'll speak to synchronicity first, and synchronicity can basically come in the form of what has been called in some of the alternative research circles, synchromysticism. Okay,
mm-hmm.
And
like
this
Chris
is
Knowles.
Yeah, this is basically where something takes on a very profound meaning almost accidentally through the creative process, where we're seeing correspondences happen. And it's like the actual act of creativity itself is driving that synchronistic process. That's why I feel it's so important for us to become content creators, to engage in the creative process, right? Part of what helps with the dissemination of the knowledge of what I talk about with What on Earth is Happening is it's also about the aesthetics behind it. It's about, designing things to promote. It's about the look of things. It's about the flow of ideas and information, but it's like, how are you putting that together in a creative way? You could do that with music. You could do that with motion graphics, with video, with presentations. You see the amount of time that I put into the visual aspect of this. I don't take that lightly. The part of that is the actual creative process. And then through that creates synchronicity. That, you see, we're driving that, and nature's giving it to us like a feedback mechanism. Okay, this is why it comes forward in movies. They're some of the biggest creative projects that mankind has kind of undertaken. It's the new art form. Stanley Kubrick was alluding to that the movie itself, the movie screen itself as the black monolith would be the thing that drives humanity forward to become the Star Child. That movie 2001: A Space Odyssey is just so profound, one of the greatest movies of all time. We're definitely coming down to the end of the show. So what I want to say is I want to say thank you for all the people who called in. Great callers as always. I mean, What on Earth is Happening has always had the best calls in internet radio. No different moving to the internet TV or video realm. So I want to thank everybody for calling in. It's been an awesome show. We'll be here every Sunday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching the first edition of the new format for What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. Government is slavery. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you right here next week.
People